Say when, I'll read the statement. Okay, so this, we'll call our State Tribal Economic Development Commission meeting for February 21, 2024 to order. Montana Department of Commerce records the meeting electronically and will serve as the official meeting minutes. If you are attending virtually, please raise your hand to be called upon. Please help the public by identifying yourself when you speak. Explain any acronyms that may be used in the discussion. If you're referring to a document, state the document name. As a final reminder, the recording will not be edited, cut, or altered in any manner. Now we'll have a roll call. Sarah?
Jennifer Finley. Here. Sean Backbone.
Here.
Delina Cutsborough. Here. Bryce Kirk.
Here.
Richard Sangre.
Here.
Gerald Gray.
Here.
Melissa Lone Bear. She is unable to join us today. Misty Poole. Paul Green. He is unable to join us today. And Mark Blaisdell. He is unable to join us today. Paul Green said he may zoom in. Same with Melissa Lone Bear.
So that establishes a quorum, right? There's 6 of us.
There's 6 of us.
Yeah. If we can,
Frame my language. Ja, je ziet maar eens, maar het is hier, wat gemaakt, je wou nou zeggen, wat vandaag dus economic development commission er is komen hier. De steen heeft toekijkt, dat ik ja gooi, laat cheskunig ja, laat ze paar voorskun, dat alles toch, maar hier is toch ja, we kan je het maatje, schuur is blijven, blijven maatje, we je gooi oh.
welcome everybody, our guests. Thanks for coming, and I'd like to have Todd Wilson, line. Thank you for letting us use your space again.
Yeah, thank you. Thank everyone for coming, and we're glad to host you guys. My name is Todd Wilson. I'm the executive director here at Helen Indian Alliance. Been here going on, in May I'll be here 7 years. But I'm a enrolled member from the Crow tribe, Sean Backbone, a big brother of mine. Look up to him for a lot of wisdom and a lot of prayers, and you know, really just welcome you guys and allowing you guys to be here. We're in the middle of a renovation. This room is being renovated, so I was surprised that you guys are in here. But you're in here. We had another room for you guys. It worked out, I guess. So again, you're here, and so welcome you to Helena, an organization. You know, and you know, if you look around, you know, this building is an old armory building, and so it has this old concrete feel to it. So really trying to make it lively and friendly and more appealing is a challenge, because it's just cinder block and concrete. It's hard to work with that stuff, especially if you're trying to remove a wall and appease some of the aesthetics of it. But you know, I thought, you know, I wanted to kind of just give you guys an insight of what we've been doing here at HI. You can see we have a new clinic. It's over here on the right, facing right to my left. And we started that project several years ago. And we were talking about economic, we were talking about development, and this was a project that we've done in the making for, like, since I got here. Like, how can we expand, and do we have the capacity to expand? Do we have the resources to expand? How do we do it? And so that's kind of one of the early on things we started working on when I got here. And we were able to get it done. You know, COVID hit, put a stop to things. But as COVID started moving on, and we're kind of lessening some of the requirements that were placed on us, we're able to start moving forward with the project. And you know, in terms of development, you know, this is a $2.4 million project. It increased from like a 1.6. So pre-COVID, 1.6, post-COVID, 2.4. That's crazy, right? We had to figure that out as well. But in total, and I ran these numbers because this is some of the numbers that we're gonna, I'll present to the state in terms of development. We talk about the economy, the development, the dollars we're bringing in with Medicaid, Medicare, all that stuff. We brought in about 100 individual employees that worked on that project with us, and about 15 companies, all of them local. And that was the type of development that we're bringing to this side of the city. If you look at, we're on the west side of the city, not too much development goes on over here. And so we're able to bring that to this side, and we're looking at even expanding beyond that. And how do we do that? And so, I mean, I like to throw those numbers out there, kind of just shows you, when I previously, this wasn't even, it was a dream. Because we didn't have the resources, we didn't have the revenue, we didn't have any of that to make it a reality. And we just started working from scratch. And our old clinic, which is up on, if you came through the front doors, is closed down now. We're looking at repurposing that to dental, again, creating more jobs. We're gonna renovate it, we're gonna hire more staff. And then upstairs, again, we're renovating our upstairs for behavioral health unit. Whole another $100,000 projects that we have in the making here. And so that's all bringing back that, like you said, that development, that economy, all of that, we're bringing that back to Helena. Now, we would really like to use native contractors, native workers, but again, that's just what's here in Helena, we're an urban area. And so I think that's kind of a point of reference when I talk about these things in how we're utilizing and how we're bringing back jobs back to Helena. And it's a real nice clinic. A lot of it was designed to have this native feel to it. We wanted our native patients to walk in and have that feel that they're back home, not just they're going into a hospital setting. So if you go in, there's a lot of native paintings on the wall. If you see in the front desk, we have all the flags of the Montana tribes in these acrylic panels. And really just making sure that all of our citizens, all of our enrolled members have a place to come. But we're working on other things. We're working on community center. We want to build that. We want to bring some sort of services for our employees' daycare. Again, creating more, developing more. And that's kind of where our project aim is. In total, I think we have about another $14, $16 million in projects that we want to figure out how to do. We don't have that budget, but again, we're taking it in phases at a time, little pieces at a time. And that's what kind of the overall vision we have here at Helena Indian Alliance. So again, welcome you guys. If you have any questions, let me know. If there's anything we can do, let us know. Caitlin, who's my assistant, knows that you guys are here. I think she's worked with Maryland, yeah. And so she'll be around and I'll be in and out. I have another meeting across town, but again, I just wanted to welcome you guys, and anything we can do to help, let us know.
Thank you, Doc.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doc.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. Public comment on non-agenda items. Do you have any public comment?
I'm just checking the chat real quick. And I don't see anyone.
So if the commissioners want to take a look at your packet, there's November 15th meeting minutes. Do I have a motion by Rocky Boy Richard, second from Crow? Any other discussion? No discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Okay. That's 3 minutes. Next up, we'll have financial literacy in any country, Commissioner Troy Downing. Morning, Commissioner.
Good morning. Well, Thanks for allowing us to come and talk about this. I'm Troy Downing, Montana State Auditor. We regulate insurance and securities and also sit on the land board of the state of Montana. You know, some of the things that people don't understand, they hear Montana State Auditor, they think, you know, we're CPAs, but we're not. We have a very different role. And the extension, you know, from both the insurance side and the security side is we do a lot of outreach. We do some of the big issues that we care about on the security side are, you know, protecting people from financial fraud. We do a lot of senior fraud outreach and education to try to prevent that. And then on both sides of those, both in the state and nationally, you know, financial literacy is a big issue for us. And so we have been trying to do more and more outreach, and I think we've been very effective at that to figure out how we can be part of the solution in, you know, raising the tide and floating boats and helping people at a younger age understand what kind of tools are available to them to be financially successful. And so as an extension to that, one of the things that I did with the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, which is all of the folks across the country that do what I do, is I chaired the American Indian and Alaska Native Liaison Committee. And what the goals of that are, first of all, to have a sounding board for issues in, you know, both, you know, tribal and urban Native communities across the country, so that they have a forum to talk about issues they have. But, you know, the main things that we're concerned with there are, you know, consumer protection, access to markets, and again, financial literacy.
Stand up there for those on the video.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was on video, apologize for that. I see you get a little antsy.
Oh, we can see what you.
Yeah, and you know, as we started going down this path in my chairmanship, we started getting a lot of interesting feedback on how to effectively communicate, and especially when you've got, you know, tribal communities and non-tribal communities, and making sure that you have cultural understanding on effective communication. And, you know, it became clear because I'm dealing with commissioners across the country. So we have, you know, Pueblos in New Mexico, we have, you know, reservations in Montana, we have, you know, urban Indians in other places. So, I mean, you can't use one blanket, you know, over everybody. Everybody's different. And understanding, you know, where the commonalities are and how you can effectively, you know, bridge that gap on communication and cultural understanding, so that you can start to see, not have us tell you what you should do, but have you tell us what you need, and understanding how to bridge that gap so we understand what the needs are. And I think we've been very effective at doing that. And nationally, we produced a tool on cultural communication, cultural understanding, and you know, things that you should consider when going in as a non, you know, native person trying to, you know, either do business or offer services or give help. And then we did a Montana specific version of that I'm pretty proud of. And we had it was important to us to have as many native voices on that, but really the purpose of that was to help non-native people understand what types of diverse cultural communication issues there may or may not be. And, you know, some of the things that rose to the top is, you know, really making sure that you show up, and you show up again, and you build relationships, and the importance of building relationships, you know, and I think that was one of the things that really rose up. And obviously, like I said, you can't put one blanket over everybody, but I think we've been, you know, very effective at doing that, of finding those things that have commonality. And as we're going down this path and trying to figure out, you know, where we can be the most help, and talking to communities, you know, what are your pain points, what are your concerns, what are your issues, what are your struggles, and how can our resources, you know, help what you're trying to achieve. And we found one of the things that is important is reaching folks that are younger than, you know, than normally. I mean, what we found in a lot of communities is if you're, you know, late in your high school career or into, you know, a junior college or something else, a lot of times, you know, it's too late. And so we started looking at younger opportunities of reaching out in, you know, financial literacy education and understanding really what the needs are. You know, are we starting in some communities at, you know, one level, some communities another level, understanding what those needs are. And something that really stuck in my head is I was talking to Senator Small out of Busby, and he said, you got everybody just kind of buzzing around. Everybody's got, you know, these ideas, they're all talking, everybody's buzzing around, nobody's actually, you know, doing anything that's substantial. How do you get rid of just the buzzing and start actually having, you know, resources, action items, something to do? And that really, you know, struck in my head. And so I said, well, how many organizations are trying to do some version of what we're trying to do? How can we get them all together? And so we started, this is probably close to a year ago. Yeah, we started a group basically of different agencies, different groups to just meet, you know, periodically to talk about what they're doing, what they're hearing, what they're seeing, what is, you know, really what's working and what's not. And I think that's been very helpful. And some of the agencies that we have in there, obviously we have my agency, the Commissioner of Securities and Insurance. We've got the Montana Council on Economic Development. We've got the Federal Reserve Bank, the Department of Labor, the Native American Development Corporation, Montana Chamber of Commerce, Montana Manufacturing Extension Center, Native Economic and Financial Education Empowerment, Department of Commerce, Browning High School. So we're getting, you know, a bigger and bigger group of folks that have, you know, the same goals, have different ways of looking at this, and we just get together and talk about it. And I think that's been, you know, incredibly useful to try to put something together. And so, you know, some of the things that come out of this is really understanding how to build relationships with these very disparate communities and figuring out who we should be talking to and who's the most effective at really, you know, understanding their community. And then the biggest thing for us is not, you know, at least for my agency, is not go in there and say, you know, here's what we want to do for you, is asking, what can we do to help? You know, really going from that approach. And so as we've gone down this path, I mean, there's been a lot of great ideas. And, you know, this group has met, you know, several times, but you know, the questions we're asking, as I've already said, you know, what are your community needs? What's working? What's not working? What would you like to see more of? What would best help you meet your community's needs? And how can we help to improve financial literacy with the youth in your community? And again, as I said before, you know, I think that the younger you can approach somebody, the more effective that's going to be. And so one of the things we've been doing, we've been using the feedback of this group to, you know, really understand how to create programs, using role models for each of these communities to help with this messaging and really get student engagement. And, you know, I've had some ideas about student engagement that have, you know, worked in different places, and we've been exploring this. I sit on the Montana, the Economic Education Council. And so one of the things that we do with schools around the state is we have these competitions. Like we have a business simulator competition, we have an economic competition, we have a stock market game. And what that does is we try to engage the teachers so they understand what tools are available, because, you know, you can engage 20 students, or you engage one teacher that affects, you know, 100 students. And so obviously that's a force multiplier if we can do that, and getting them involved. And what's in it for the students is they create these teams and they learn skills as they're playing this game, you know, the stock market game or the, you know, business simulator, whichever one it is. And they compete with other groups, either within their school or with other schools around the state. And so first of all, that encourages engagement because you're working on these goals, but we also give them prizes and we give them awards, and, you know, they get, you know, gift cards for the, you know, top teams that do it. And so just finding that's one example of many, finding ways to get, you know, buy-in from the students that we're trying to reach. And historically, those programs have been, you know, aimed at high school students, but we're starting to bring in junior high school students as well, because again, I think that it's important that we hit that, you know, much earlier. we've got, some draft education models that we've been doing for, grades 6 through 8, and I'm happy to make sure that you all, get copies of this if you're interested, but, teaching the students is one, as I talked about, teaching the teacher. And again, that's something that's important to us, to make sure that we are having that force multiplier. Creating these student advisory groups and clubs just to get buy-in. And, and those are the tools that we're working with, but really what I want to focus on, and what I'd like to be the takeaway here, is we want to do something more than hover. We want to start doing actionable things, but we want to make sure that we have community buy-in and that we're talking to the right people. And so, my intent is, for me and my agency, is to, show up and listen, and show up again, and show up again, and show up again, until you build that trust and that communication, and we can still start to really do something that's meaningful, that, all these very disparate communities see as something that is positive, for what they want to see in their community. So that's what we're doing. Molly Plummer is my chief of staff. She's been very integral in developing this group and this program in our office. And I don't know if you have anything to add that I might have missed there.
No, we just had some really great conversation, and we really appreciate your communities have made themselves available, and we've had phone calls. And there's a smaller working group, because that's such a large group with those larger organizations. We needed to kind of get more local, so we have smaller groups figuring out, what that need is, what the desire is, and then working with these larger groups to bring those and have something that can be tailored.
Right. And so, in the goals that we have here, the people in the room, the people online, if you have somebody that has connections, in any of our tribal communities in the state, that is interested in what we're doing, please help us, because we want to make sure that we're talking to the right people, and that we have buy-in from these communities, and that we're not leaving anybody out. So if there's folks that you think would be interested in being part of this conversation, we're meeting, is it quarterly now? Yeah, yes, we have a quarterly meeting, and you can do that via Zoom or in person or a combination, of really just talking about what all these different groups are doing, how, we can solve common problems. And my biggest concern is making sure that we're talking to the right people. And everybody in this room can help us make sure that we're talking to the right people. On that, if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer.
How many schools have you reached out to?
We've been,
And I mean, I guess, on the reservations.
well, I don't have that number in front of me, but we're, anybody who will return a call, we'll go meet with.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's been quite a few, and we've had some where the initial conversation was they're interested in the program, and we'll get the tools, and then they won't take the next step. And so again, I think it's, show up again and show up again until you start to build that trust and that communication. But we'll continue doing that. And the big thing is not just, not just the schools. We want to make sure that there's teachers that are hungry for this and reaching out, and even more so, community members that are going to reach out and do this. Because what I want to see is, I mean, it affects us all. I mean, having a community that is financially stable and understands, how to float that boat. I mean, that helps everybody.
Okay.
That's a business owner, that's a customer, that's a community member, that's somebody that is floating all these boats. And the more that happens, I think the more buy-in we get, because it's infectious. You see somebody that's, successful because they have these tools, it helps everybody. And so one of the things that we do on some of the council or the commission boards that I sit on, is we try to reach out to the community. So this is not just people, but businesses and industries, saying we are helping cultivate your next generation of employees, your next generation of customers, your next generation of business owners. And that's important to everybody. So just trying to find, broader buy-in, not just from, community leaders, but from businesses and industry and everybody that succeeds if we have, a financially literate population. And that's, and I hate using that word, literate. I mean, it's not, I don't want to make it sound like, anybody's illiterate, but we just want to make sure that they, have the tools. I mean, one of the terms we try to use, financial literacy is obviously something that you hear often, but just financial empowerment, just empowering people to understand, how to, retain, make, and grow money for the benefit of their family, of their community, of the state. And, that's our goal.
How about tribal colleges?
So when you talk about reaching out to schools, that's been one of our primary group of those. That was at the suggestion of somebody from the University of Montana. So we have actually, how about that? We have actually met with each representative from each of the colleges as a first step, and that was kind of doing that needs assessment. And we've been working with, and his last name escapes me, Joe up in Browning. He's a counselor. He is an older gentleman and he is so excited. He has been absolutely, has ideas, recommending people to talk to, and I think he wants to be part of kind of that initial test pilot to see what we're putting together. So yeah, both levels.
Yeah, I think sounds like a great program too, and I do, applaud you on the, far too often in in-country, it's a one and done.
Yeah.
And I like the repetitiveness because we get that all the time. Vets come in and they'll want to teach us something or show us something, and then they're there, then they're gone.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that feedback, and my own experience there is, my first meetings, everybody's just kind of, all right, we'll see if we can do again. And then you show up again, and then you show up again, and pretty soon, well, even for the Governor's Cup golf, fundraiser last year, I had the CSKT reach out and ask if I'd be on their golf team. Okay, I made an inroad, so it was all good, yeah.
Richard?
Yeah, I just got a question. You work on insurance.
Yes.
A lot of our people up there, they try to get the best value. Really, it is not the best policy, I would say. They get these out of, like, they get these insurance companies that are out of state.
Right.
And it just takes so dang long for them to get a claim.
Right.
And,
Well, okay, well, that,
but they're afraid to ask anybody.
well, what I encourage people to do is, I have a whole team of people that just answer the phones and answer questions like that. And if the insurance companies are not doing what they're supposed to do, we go after them. And so I encourage people, if you've got something that's happened, with an insurance company, and they're not giving you the right answers, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, one of the things that happens in our office is we don't know what's going on if you don't tell us. And so if we don't get complaints, we can't always figure that out. So here's a prime example, is we had a bunch of complaints about contributory negligence that have been coming in the last couple of years. And what that means is, if you're, a victim, like somebody else runs into you, sometimes the insurance company for this driver will try to attribute part of the blame to you. They'll say because you were in the wrong place, or you didn't honk your horn, or you didn't, do something. And so we got so many complaints about that happening. Well, somebody would say, I was the victim. I was just parked on the side of the road. Why am I partially responsible? So that triggered what's called a market conduct examination in our office. And we looked at that insurance company. And about 2 weeks ago, we finally got a consent agreement with that company. And we fined them the largest fine in the history of my office. It was $4 million fine and $2 million in restitution. So obviously, we can't make that insurance company do anything that's not in the law or in their policy, but we can compel them to do what's in the law and in their policy. And if they're not doing the right thing, we encourage people to call us, because I do have people that know the industry, you know, forward and backwards, and they're there to help you.
Commissioner Kirk has his hand up.
Okay?
Bryce?
Yeah, most definitely. You know, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for showing up today. I guess when it comes to going into the schools and the tribal colleges, so Department of Labor just hired Donnie Wetzel. And so Donnie Wetzel used to work in the education aspect of it, but also moved over to the Department of Labor aspect now, and has a great understanding with kids in school, with tribal colleges. And, you know, he's getting ready to start these great programs with working programs and things like that. So, I mean, with somebody that already has his foot in the door, that already has built this relationship and is working with the state, I think it would be great for you to reach out to him and, you know, just collaborating more with him to be able to get your foot in the door when you're talking about growing the future of a working force. So.
Yeah, no, well, thanks for that recommendation. And, yeah, no, like I said, we want to make sure that we're engaging everybody that has these connections, and we will, if we haven't already, have we?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's already on the team, so, which is great. And then also, Sarah Swanson, who's the new commissioner in the Department of Labor, is a friend, and also shares, a lot of the concerns that we do and what we're trying to do, so.
Chairman, I think most of them, I just want to say thank you very much. I think this is a good effort. This is great. Thank you for this update. And thank you for being here. Some of my questions were already answered. And I just wanted to offer Sean Chandler, he's our president of the On Dakota College in Fort Belknap. And then also Emma Langle, my Upward Bound director. They have a complete summer component, if you're familiar with Upward Bound. And they could actually implement some of this financial literacy. I think they would be excited to have that on board.
Great.
And then my 477 director, Jonathan Walker, they still deal with young people, and they have higher education scholarships and educational programs, and I'd like to wrap them in. I'll definitely give you their information. My question was just about, have you thought anything about an analysis or an assessment of effectiveness of UCC codes from tribes? Because, we all create our universal commercial codes.
Right.
That we still haven't popped the bubble of good lending practices in our local banks.
Right.
Will you eventually turn an eye on lenders and try to do some education for equality lending, especially for new producers, as well as these young people that you're talking about?
Right.
Banking is something that you should be doing at a young age, but then, when you're at that stage, or credit builder as well, we have it emerging at our Fort Belknap reservation. So I was just wondering, just put it on your radar, just think about the effectiveness of UCC codes, because you have them, but what good is it to you if you're not going to get lending to pop through?
Yeah.
So those are assurances for lenders, And so I'm just wondering, because we're working with MSU to have the law students kind of help us with our own little assessment. But I'm just wondering, why change a thing if it's not going to do you no good to change it? You could have it on paper, but it's not going to do us any good if we don't actually get, lenders to kind of get on board.
Right.
With those assurances to lend folks on the reservation. That's my comment, and thank you very much.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate your comment, and obviously, all of this stuff, ties in, homeownership's a big part, being able to, finance homeownership, being able to insure homeownership. And so we've dealt with redlining in tribal communities, where they just say, we're not gonna write business, and making sure that they understand that they can't do that. You can't redline. Making sure that that's there. In terms of, the lending, obviously, there's a big difference between, title and tribal land or land on reservations and off reservations. And so, to the extent that we can, we want to make sure that is accessible, and that we remove any barriers to that. My office, we don't regulate the banking side of that, but we work very closely with them. But definitely on the insurance side, and there's kind of a chicken and egg part of that as well. Lenders won't lend if you can't insure, and so we're all kind of interconnected. But I think that's good to look at the UCC codes. That's something that I have not personally looked at, but I will take that up. And if you have something that you can send us that you think is a good, that would be awesome. Appreciate it. Well, thank you for your time. And if you have any other questions, just reach out to us. We're happy to talk. And if you have things going on in any of your communities where something's not right, you know, just call us. You know, like I said, sometimes that triggers those examinations that, you know, triggers something bigger. And, you know, we're here, I mean, primarily as a consumer protection agency, and we take that role very seriously. So thank you. Honored to be here. We'll be here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Okay, moving on. Commissioners round robin discussion. We want to discuss, anything to discuss? How are things going in Rockaway, Richard?
Well, we're finishing up some projects, you know, economic development wise. We're moving ahead, we're thinking about building a new tribal office and, $18 million project. We just want a one-stop shop place. We're scattered from one end of the reservation to the other as far as offices are concerned. And the clinic is just finishing up a housing project for their employees. You know, every morning we see that bus coming in from Harvard and dropping off the employees, and then they have to ride the bus back. So those employees, maybe we'll get more people up there that will be interested in serving our community if we have a place to house them. Those are just a few of the things we're working on. Hopefully we'll get some tourism dollars. Bring some more people in.
How many houses you guys building?
They've got about 18, 19, for clinic site, and our housing continues to, serve different individuals. We've got a senior home project. We started out with, 15, but inflation knocked that down to about 13, so we have to do about 2 homes. I don't say room to me.
It's the corner room. John, any updates?
Well, I drove around and I seen, I think there's a Head Start, kind of like a daycare going up, almost done on by our veterans apartment. Then, senior citizens, they got a renovation, they're going, I think the housing is doing that. And the IHS, they're putting in some, I think they're doing some apartments too as well. But, you know, and then we're gearing up for the summer again, like our marina and our campground, and that's the part that I kind of take care of. We're just anticipating a good year. But on the other note, on economics, on our, it's, you know, the leakage, I always go back to the leakage report. It's 15 cents stays from an hour. I looked into all the businesses that were there. The Crow Tribe, we have a Crow Nation Express, which the money spins there a couple of times. We make a nice chunk of change. But you have Buck Thompson is a non-Indian. You got the 7th Ranch who's a non-Indian. You got the GEOs who's a non-Indian. You got the TP gas station service that's a enrolled non-Indian. And all our money goes there every day. At 5 o'clock, they take that money, nothing stays, there's no reciprocation. And so I drove around, there's 23 burned houses. There's 20 abandoned houses in Crow Agency, Montana. I mean, it's dilapidated. And our coal mine is shutting down in April, so we won't get the annual per capita. So this reservation kind of mentality, and then you got the, mathematical genocide, they say, the blood quantum is getting stacked, 30 years from now, there'll be no enrollment. So those are the kind of things that, as an economic developer, I looking at. And I was looking at that, it always comes back to me that ammunition that was supposed to be in Fort Peck, then they moved it to Glendive. Why don't this economics in the state of Montana bring these big old giant and help us put it there? Instead of asking us, what do you need? Why don't they bring something in here? We'll help you with that. Okay, that's $125 million project. I kind of followed it, 300 members, they're looking for 300 people to work there. That would have been a big economy for anybody on any Indian reservation, So that's the kind of the natural resources. And then I had an issue on our water right, and they're building ditches, and they're putting like $100 million into these ditches right now. These contractors coming in, so all I wanted, I wanted my sweat lodges by the ditch, and it only flows 6 months out of the year. So I told that guy, I said, hey, why don't you put some stairs in for me? It's in our compact, spiritual, cultural use. And he said, you got no right. You let your right go on my land. That ditch goes through my land. I said, you're nothing, we ain't gonna do nothing for you. In fact, I'll tell you to move your sweat lodge. That's what he told me. So that's what.
Who owns the ditch?
The VOR, but there's a right of way issue. It's not a perpetual right of way, it goes through our land. So we got a fellow by the name of Jim Gamble. That was Tim McKenna. So it's kind of interesting on how this water rights, if you're doing water rights, watch what you pass. Because, fortunately, we got our water right going, we passed that $450 million compact. So it's interesting, it's kind of, I didn't want to find out, but I found out in that way, So that's where we're at. And, economics is it's not spinning. We're a tourist place, but it just goes and just goes right by us, We can't grasp it because there's no infrastructure for the businesses to stay there as an Indian business. So that's the thing, but maybe in time we can rebound or recuperate or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the little shells, a couple updates, we have, we just last week started our food distribution program. We opened up that, we had quite a few members show up to get some food boxes, which we're really excited about. There's a lot of red tape because we went through, working with USDA. Oh boy, that was I couldn't believe how many modules you had to be trained on to do that. Then we also purchased 18 acres that we're gonna develop homes, single family units and also multi-family units and duplexes. We're really excited about that. We're in the planning stages of that. And then we also notified IHS 2 weeks ago that we are going to assume our clinic. So we're in the planning stages, and that means we're gonna 638 it because, they can't even hire a provider. It's really frustrating, and I think we can do a better job of running our own. So we're gonna do that and then move forward with that, so. Exciting times in Great Falls. Oh, we need some tours of them too.
I was gonna say, I was waiting for that.
No.
And what about the arbor?
Oh, yeah, so that's where we need a little bit more to beef it up a little bit.
Yeah, are you hoping to have your powwow out
Yeah.
there this year?
Oh, yeah,
Do you have a date set?
it's I think it's the third weekend in August.
Awesome.
Yes, oh, yeah, no, we'll definitely have it up by then, but after October, that was the first week.
Second week, second
Second and third,
third week is cool.
okay, before you?
Yeah,
Okay,
so Rocky was first week.
and then
Yeah, they're second, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, second.
Okay, both.
Got it, okay.
Chevy Rick?
Yeah.
So you're building those, new, apartments, so we built them veterans apartments. I was vice secretary at the time. We used, housing tax credits, so you might wanna.
Oh,
it was
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
good, yeah.
Yeah.
And so they built single family. I think it was a 15 units we built, so.
Yeah,
Why-
actually, because when we bought this property, the owners had already platted out a subdivision. It's in the, what they call the Valley View subdivision, so we're gonna take a look at that and then start the infrastructure stuff. I mean, it sounds like a common theme, housing. It's always an issue.
I also am involved with NCAI, National Congress of American Indians, and I'm the regional vice president of the Rocky Mountain region. So I'll share a couple things that I learned at that executive winter session that I just attended, last week. A couple of things I thought were interesting. The US Department of Commerce was there. I have to look this up and find out more, but it sounded really interesting. The US Department of Commerce was there, and they're gonna look at developing semiconductor tech centers. And they're going to invest some money in workforce development to help young people and mid-career folks. So like if someone like me wanted to do a new career, making semiconductors, there's gonna be some funds available to make that happen. And so they're looking at possibly like maybe tribal colleges who might be interested in workforce development, or tribes that might be interested in doing tech centers for semiconductors. So I wanted to share that information. So, I'm sure it's on their website, but that's pretty new. And then I found out about another, I have to check with our housing department, but there's a program called the Price Program through HUD that's also fairly new. And that was interesting to me because the Price Program is funding that the United States government has, but there's set aside funds for tribes. And what that is to rehabilitate modular homes. And when I was looking at it, it looks like if there are homes that are older than 1979, that these funds could replace it. And so I wanted to see if our housing has tapped into that resource, because it's pretty new. So I wanted to share those with everyone in the Rocky Mountain region. And then as far as our tribe specifically, one thing that we're looking at, we're in the beginning stages of planning a new travel center in Elmo, one of our communities. So we're just at the beginning of that, and I'm pretty excited I'm just pretty excited about that. It's on the northern part of our reservation. It's less populated than the southern end. So, it's a needed resource there. In those communities on the northern end, there's no place to get gas or buy food or anything. They have to drive into Folsom. So, and then I'm gonna be part of actually, some of our staff are part of a discussion, again, very beginning stages, about the possibility of a regional treatment center. And that's a huge part of economic development. So I found out that, and it's probably the same on every reservation, but certainly on ours, most of the people in jail in tribal and in county are mentally ill. And there's no place else to put people who have mental health issues, so they wind up in jail. So anyway, but when people are in jail, then their income goes to zero. They're not providing for their families, they're not getting the help that, they're not getting the mental health services that they actually do need. So I think that would be a really good thing for economic development in Montana, more treatment centers.
Yep.
So people can get the help that they need, re-enter the workforce, not go down the rabbit hole of being in jail. Because once you go down that road, it's really hard to get out of. Then you get, it's just hard for people.
So I'm part of that regional treatment center discussion.
Yeah.
And what we're looking at right now is, the governance of it, how it's gonna operate, and then, the location, wouldn't want to make it a central location and all the tribes are on board with it, but it's also, it's not just a, 30-day or 60-day, it's however long it takes for you to get healthy, well, but then on the back end of it, we're trying to figure out how tribes can provide, you can't just put the box back into the hen house, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So we gotta have housing and work afterwards, and we're really looking at that whole picture. I mean, it's a tough deal.
It is a
It's
tough
big,
deal.
big thing.
Yeah, and then we're just looking at ways as a tribe to be more innovative with workforce development and apprenticeship programs to train people up for jobs. Because that seems an easier route to go sometimes than, going away for lots of training and things like that, to train people who are already there. So I'm excited about that. So we're also just trying to think of how can we be more strategic about apprenticeship within our tribe, with our tribal members.
We share your support for regional treatment, but we have a problem with recidivism reduction as well on that. We do have an RRI program through the Tawahi contract, but it's mostly focused on youth, which is very important, but it's a problem that we have overcrowding in jails. But we have 638 contracted behavioral health and Indian Health Service, and we're doing, I believe, 100%, we're doing a ton of a better job than Indian Health Service did with our behavioral health. That it's an integrated CDC and behavioral health, so there's in between the cracks, but we're still challenged with treatment, money for treatment, inpatient treatment. What do you do with, after treatment? You're right, so we have the same challenges, so, because, we might be interested to track and to find out, what you folks are doing and share those efforts so that we can make sure that we try to figure out solutions.
Well, you guys are included in, all the discussions, so it's really a neat thing, I think it's one
Very
of
important,
they do it in, Spokane, state of Washington for youth, 7 lodges, I think it's called. But we're gonna do it first time, all the tribes are together with us.
I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, that's huge.
So I'm just getting in.
Good.
But yeah, one thing I found out too, and I have to, sometimes I take notes and I'm like, is that right? Someone said that there's only 10 facilities in the United States that take pregnant women and women and children. 10 treatment facilities. So there's a limited, so with women who are pregnant or with kids, there's very few places that will take them in.
So also too, the Montana Healthcare Foundation has a program called Meadowlark that is specifically geared towards pregnant women and substance abuse.
Yeah.
You might want to check into that. Tressie does a really good job of
What
it.
is it?
Meadowlark? Yeah, it's a really good initiative, and they will,
Where is it?
the Montana Healthcare Foundation.
Oh, yeah.
Tressie. It's a really good program. Help women.
Well, at Fort Belknap, we have Indian Health Service, has had lots of money to go around, because we're also getting an ER expansion at our agency, health clinic. We have 2, one in northern end of the reservation of the agency, and then one out south. The agency has an ER, so, they're doing an ER expansion, and then they're also building staff quarters. So our tribal construction firm is, doing the work, so it's kind of beneficial to our tribal members for economic development. We're also doing a law enforcement renovation project, wrapping that up. It's pretty much, completed except for just some sidewalks and, some landscaping and whatnot that will be handled in the spring when the weather breaks a little bit. But that's exciting because we'll be able to find a new home for our dispatch, which is kind of been left behind in the old jail that's not in use anymore. So that's going to be really tremendous for public safety efforts. And that's a tribal contractor working on that, working with our A&E firm. And then we have the Eagle Valley Housing Development, which has been like forever a project. Housing Authority had received a lot of grant funds from the Department of Housing and Urban Development and ICDBG and whatnot. So we're just finishing up some water sewer infrastructure on the site. It can hold around 240 homes, but of course, we don't have the money for all of that. So once the housing will be able to use their grant funds to put about 20 homes up, you know, on one block or two. So we're really excited about that. Lots of people are interested in plans for that. You know, will there be, you know, student housing? Will there be, you know, teacher housing? You know, it's the master plan is always ever changing on that, but it's exciting. Anything to do with homes. You know, like was mentioned before, we have a lot of abandoned homes. So, you know, trying to find ways to figure out how to flip those homes or purchase those homes, you know, things like that. So we've got an inventory too, and we're trying to figure out, you know, how we can best use those spots to put new homes on. Again, you know, it's always a money issue. We are in the process of, we pulled the trigger to 638, the pharmacy for Maine Health Service, so that's kind of something new. We'll see how that pans out. We do have a tourism grant, for our Hayes Mission Canyon. We're pretty much on the downhill swing on that with just a kiosk to finish. So we're grateful for the tourism grant, and it's really helpful to everything that happens in our Mission Canyon in Hayes. So, and then we have a Hayes Wellness Center, which is, we're kind of used a combination of funds, including USDA. So you know how USDA is, you know, we have to still cross a finish line of all this pre-stuff. So we're kind of on the verge, 2 out of 16 letter of condition items to finish, and then we might be able to start constructing at some point this spring. Kind of working on a business plan on the side to make sure that we can keep the doors open. That's one of the council's biggest concerns. And I don't blame them, but you know, we're trying to stay within reality on third-party billing, and then of course the sunset for Medicaid is a concern. We have a dialysis unit team. We've been talking dialysis since 1992, maybe 1980. It's a definitely a need, and we'll see how that goes. BI 105 leasing, very excited to finally finish and submit our application. I'm sure Richard submitted, you know, his
2 years ago.
2 years ago. It took us about a year to get to where we're at now, but we finally submitted, and we had a good conference call with the fellow in DC, and he was telling us like all the parameters that sounds pretty darn good. I like it.
They've only got 3 people to cover the whole country.
Yeah, he's like totally strapped, yeah. But it sounds real flexible, and I'm really excited about, you know, because a lot of times, especially with economic development, we always have to have some matching costs or leverage and whatnot. So, you know, we're kind of making sure we're excited about that opportunity. And aside from enhancing our maintenance and janitorial services for, you know, the 40+ you know, facilities that we have on the reservation to manage. And then a little bit of broadband connectivity. We're kind of trailing Rocky Boy a bit, but you know, we've been watching Rocky Boy a little bit, been doing broadband connectivity, and so we're trailing Rocky Boy a little bit, but we're excited to see that they're successful with a lot of what they're doing with the broadband connectivity. A small note, we are doing the Orphan Well, you know, grant project awarded to us through the state. That's mostly contract work. We're in the planning stages on that, and then if successful, which I'm sure we have, because we have secured a pretty good qualified contractor, we might be able to move into the implementation phases, but that helps protect the environment, and it also, you know, increases, you know, our range units, you know, that we have.
Is that through IHS?
State.
Oh, the state? Oh, good.
And then we are also doing, well, we have we're doing some plans for rebuilding existing or renovating any other building for my commodity department. Commodities is a vital service on the reservation. It's a great project, and we appreciate the funding that we do get from the state for that. But our buildings are aged, and, you know, hopefully with this 105 leasing and some other, you know, creativity and allowances for different funds, we'll be able to get our commodities out of their temporary building and into a new building hopefully soon. So that's kind of the general gist.
Well, happening. Good. Yeah, Richard?
You know, let's let Jennifer mention that one program, with Department of Commerce. And Department of Labor also announced last week that they had another program for 16 to 24-year-olds. You know, on our reservation, we're having a huge truancy problem. And see, our Rockaway School actually started up, our high school started out as alternative high school. And so they're talking about an alternative high school again. Or go back, you know, try to get the kids involved, get them back in school. And we're also looking at, we got the terror organization, it's got a statewide meeting here next Wednesday. And I'm sure all the terror people from all the reservations, a lot of them are involved in that. And I think one of the things we're looking at is how to form apprenticeships. And Jason Small, Senator Jason Small is one of the members that come over and talk to the group on apprenticeships. The unions. But I really don't want an alternative high school. All our kids to get through high school.
Yeah.
But there are those kids that are gonna, don't want to work in the office. It's, I know my grandson, he'd rather rodeo than go to school. So we're looking at that program through our organization and see how many we can get. We don't want them to drop out of high school, but to help them obtain GED or something like similar to that. The pandemic, I think, ruined a lot of our kids.
Oh, yeah.
They're so used to staying home. But I've ruined some of my workers. They're used to staying home. But we just got off teleworking, so they have to come back to the office. No more teleworking. I don't know about the PIA, but whether they're ever gonna get back.
Right.
Of course, they're over and over.
They're quick to tell us still.
Bryce, do you have an update? Fort Peck?
Yeah, most definitely. So, yeah, we got about about $16.5 million for our Head Start centers. I know that we're gonna get going on that. We had some abatement and things that we had to get rid of some asbestos and things on our one in Wolf Point. So we're getting ready to get fired up on those. I know $1 million got set aside for our outer communities in Fort Kipp and Fraser to kind of redo theirs, and then spent the other $14 million on facilities, one in Wolf Point and one in Poplar. Just trying to bring more to those buildings and things like that when it comes to the youth, starting even having a daycare inside of there. I know that we just getting ready to open up another daycare facility that we built here in Wolf Point that's right next to the Head Start. So kids are able to get dumped off at 7 and then they'll just get transported over to Head Start. I know that our processing plant is getting ready to get up and moving, get up and moving and everything when it comes to that. That'll be done this spring. We have a courts building going up right now that'll house, and it's kind of sitting right next to our jail, to be able to have court and stuff right next to the jail. Just got some cement walkways and stuff that we got to put in there. Oh geez, we just took over 638 at the dental, so we're starting to expand that aspect of it. We had bought some houses and stuff in Culbertson for our dentist and to be able to do surgeries and stuff on our people's teeth, caps and crowns and everything like that. So dentists, and we have hired 4 dentists when it comes to that, plus I guess buying properties in Glasgow and Culbertson kind of off the reservation because I don't know, I guess everybody's scared to live on the reservation, I guess, but I think, you know, more than anything, just with the economic development part, we did get that grant to be able to expand and fix up the housing up at our Buffalo Ranch. And so just to kind of have a place to stay when it comes to tourism stuff. So we're finalizing that, getting that going. Geez, just a little bit of everything that we got going on. I know that we signed a contract with Three Rivers Communication down across the river in Sydney to be able to help us with our broadband and stuff like that, to be able to get going so we can kind of go away from Nemont and get away from them, because their services and stuff for us just ain't working well. So I know that we're working our way when it comes to broadband on that aspect there. Geez, what else we got? Oh, we just set aside another $2.5 million to be able to open up 2 feeding sites in Poplar and in Wolf Point also, for the summer feeding program, but also the after school feeding program and stuff for our young ones to have somewhere to go, to be able to eat, do homework. I know that one of the biggest plans is to put stuff in there that kids access, so that way, you know, it don't shut down till 8 to 9 at night, to kids have a safe place to go, something warm to eat. So I know that we're gonna get going building on those. So there are probably a lot more that we got going on, but right now I think that's kind of where we're at with the main stuff and the main things we got going on. More than anything, just like everybody's talking about, trying to curb the truancy aspect, the homelessness aspect, the hungry kids aspect, and, you know, the mental health and well-being of our children and stuff. Just trying to make sure that we stay on top of that going forward. So
Sounds good. All right, well, with that, I guess we'll take a 15-minute break, a little bit ahead of schedule. Yeah.
Do you know Major Robinson? I do. Major and his wife. And it's.
Go ahead and get started, presentation from the Humanities of Montana. Floor is yours. Thank you. You are. Could you shut that door?
Well, thank you for having us. My name is John May. I'm the Programs Director at Humanities Montana. This is my colleague, Megan Hill, our Grants and Evaluations Director at Humanities Montana. And we're here to share with you just some of the information that we have for Humanities Montana. We're currently based out of Missoula, but we're a statewide organization. We are a private nonprofit, not a state agency, founded in 1972 with federal legislation. Our purpose is to distribute National Endowment for the Humanities federal funds through the state of Montana. Every state and territory in the United States has a Humanities Council. We just happen to be Montana's.
Yeah, so just to add to that, John said we received funding from the National Endowment for the Humanities. About 90% of our budget is comprised of that funding. And that's how we fund our programs and our grant making. We're essentially re-granting federal dollars, but we do have private funding just through regular donations and things like that. And we have, how many staff do you have?
We have 5 full-time staff, or full part-time staff, and so pretty small organization.
Yeah, that's who we are. All right, is anyone familiar with us?
Heard of you.
Heard of us?
Yeah. Good, well, we like to say that we want to have our programs and grants in every community in Montana. We are a statewide organization, so we don't want programs just in urban populations or rural communities. We want statewide representation. So part of our hope is to be on the road, meeting with folks like you all and spreading the word of Humanities Montana and hoping to get our grants and our programs up to your communities. So, yeah. So if you go to slide 2, just a little agenda. Our little introduction will go to 11:15 this morning, and then we're gonna have a listening session with you all, just a Q&A, just to get some ideas of what type of programs and grants we can build to best serve you all in the future. Megan will lead that portion of that, and when we get to that portion, we'll give you a little more explanation on that listening session. So our introduction to humanities, I know I've given you a lot of information already. If you skip down to slide 4, thank you. Our mission at Humanities Montana is to serve Montana's multicultural communities through stories and conversations. We offer experiences that nurture imagination and ideas by speaking to Montanans' diverse history, literature, and philosophy. Our vision is to provide programs that tell diverse stories, to facilitate conversations about the most pressing issues, to support Montana's cultural institutions through grants and partnerships, and to offer humanities such as history, literature, and philosophy to nurture memory, imagination, and ideas throughout the state. That said, if you're familiar with the Montana Arts Council here in Helena, they're kind of our sister organization. They fund arts projects, arts institutions, we're the humanities side of that. So, and if we skip to slide 5 then, as we mentioned, we kind of have 2 ways that we distribute that funding. One is through programs, which I direct as the programs director, and one is through grants. With our programs, we have a speakers bureau of 55 speakers currently. That speakers bureau is called Montana Conversations and Speakers in the Schools. Montana Conversations are free programs to cultural organizations in your communities. That could be a museum, a library, a Rotary Club, so on and so forth. We pay the speaker to travel to your community to give a presentation. They get an honoraria from us. We reimburse their mileage, their lodging, their food, and all of that. Within our Montana Conversations and Speakers in the Schools Speakers Bureau, we have everything from Montana poetry to Salish culture, Montana history, philosophy, so on and so forth. And I manage these 55 speakers, and I want to have, a diversity of representation within that bureau. So I'm always looking for new speakers, especially Indigenous speakers, to really speak to their communities. So I'm throwing that out there. If you have any ideas in the future that you want to send my way, I'm always willing to talk to new speakers and bring them on board.
Can we see a list of the speakers you currently have, or?
We don't have it up on this slideshow, but it is on our website through the card. Yeah, and I'm sorry for that. With our speakers in the schools, it's very similar to Montana Conversations. That is free programs for the schools, through K through 12 schools. So that could be anything from Indian education for all to literacy curriculum help for teachers. And our speakers will go in free of charge to the school to help with those teachers in those classrooms. And if we skip to the next slide, I'll give you a little information on both of those programs. So Montana Conversations, trained facilitators and experts lead workshops and conversations on topics like current affairs, untold histories, native cultures, literature, and more. This is funded by the NEH and the Montana Coal Severance Tax here in Montana. And these conversations are available to all communities, as I've mentioned. And if we go to the next slide.
What do you mean available to communities? How does that look? Like we call you and ask you to come to our community?
Yeah, that's a great question. It would be a museum would book the presentation, or a Rotary Club, or a group of individuals. They would see that presentation, they'd go on our website, reach out to the speaker and say, hey, we'd like to bring you in, and you send us a simple application that tells me that everything's scheduled, and our speaker will come to you, okay, and we'll pay for it. Yeah, thank you. So 129 programs occurred across Montana last fiscal year. 64% of these conversations were in rural communities. 29% of those conversations were in urban communities, and 7% of Montana conversations occurred statewide with audiences through virtual programs. So we do offer Zoom presentations that can be presented at multiple locations at once as well. And if we go to the next slide, just a little information on speakers in the schools. Very similar to Montana Conversations, trained facilitators and experts lead workshops and conversations on the same topics as I mentioned. Teachers can also work with our speakers to tailor programs to meet classroom needs. And often we see that occurring to really meet those curriculum needs in those classrooms. And Speakers in the Schools programs are free to all schools, both private and public and homeschool groups. And we'd like to see distribution among all of those groups as well. So, and next slide, please. 103 programs were booked across Montana in 2023, with 342 individual presentations occurring in those program bookings. So often a speaker will come in and give 4 presentations a day to multiple classrooms and get really good, access to all those students. 73% of speakers in the schools programs occurred in rural communities last year. 19% of those were in Native American communities, and 27% of speakers in the schools programs occurred in urban communities. So that's some information on speakers in the schools. Another program that I'm running is the Democracy Project, which will be the next slide. The Democracy Project is our only program in Humanities Montana that's not funded through the NEH. It's funded through the Charles Engelhardt Foundation out in Missoula. The Democracy Project is a team-led, nonpartisan initiative supported by local libraries, community partners, and Humanities Montana. This program gives teens the resources to meet community needs while learning their role in an evolving democracy. This is a teen civic engagement program through the libraries. And through direct civic engagement, teens work for 6 months on projects that they feel are vital to their community, ending in a public showcase. Just a little information on all that. Last year, teens in Helena wrote a bill that they took to the legislature, got picked up by a legislator here in Helena, drafted the bill on teen mental health. OPI attached $1 million to that bill. Unfortunately, the bill didn't make it out of committee, but it was a really great experience for the teens to learn the legislative process. That's one example. Another project in Fort Peck last year at the Tribal College Library, teens worked on like a food and clothing bank through their library for other teens to access, their essentials for the day. We'd like to see, projects that can meet a local need or a statewide need, whatever that may be. And next slide, please. As I mentioned, the Democracy Project is funded through the Engelhardt Foundation. We award participating libraries $3,500 to participate with us. And that's really to advance their teen youth programming at their library and civics in their library. The Democracy Project right now is statewide, with libraries from Circle to Columbia Falls. We have libraries in Webo and Fort Peck. We've been meeting with libraries in Lame Deer. We're bringing on Browning Tribal College Library next year. So we're really looking for statewide representation with this program. And we're finding that the Democracy Project is really driving our other grants and our other programs as well. It really introduces Humanities Montana to new communities. Next slide, please. And so just one last thing on the Democracy Project, we're really trying to advocate for leadership among teens and youth and their communities, critical and creative thinking, collaboration between libraries, and to promote information literacy with teenagers as well. So it's a little bit on the Democracy Project. The final program I'm going to share with you all is the next slide, the Montana Center for the Book. The Montana Center for the Book is a program of Humanities Montana and the state affiliate of the Center for the Book at the Library of Congress. The mission of the center is to promote awareness of books, writing, reading, the book arts, publishing, and literacy in Montana. I would say that there's an even breakdown across the United States and territories. Some humanities councils have a program that is the Center for the Book, and some state libraries run that program. We just happen to house the Center for the Book in Montana. And if you go to the next slide, some of our programs that are associated with the Center for the Book, Montana Reads, Montana Writes. These are literacy programs, speakers that will go into the schools and work on curriculum with teachers. Big Sky Reads grants. We give $500 micro grants to book clubs across the state. So a library can apply for that, and very little reporting is due at the end of that. Megan has more information on it. And then a program that I take to the National Book Festival is the Great Reads from Great Places book selection. We take 2 authors, 1 children's, 1 adult author, to the National Book Festival and promote their books to a national audience. And it's a strange position. I find myself being kind of a tourist rep for Montana while I'm there, but it's really fun. And then finally, we work with the Montana State Poet Laureate right now, who is Chris Latre, who's one of our program speakers. And Chris has been traveling across the state, giving that program to schools, to communities, and we're so honored to be able to pay him for that.
And he's Photoshop.
He is, there you go. So, yeah, so that's some of my information for programs. I'm gonna let Megan take over on grant making, and then we'll get into a little Q&A and listening session with you all. Great, thank you.
Okay, so, yeah, I get John gets, how do you explain it, you have like a certain number of bands on tour?
Yes, I joke that I have 55 bands on tour all at once with different expectations on how they get paid and interpretations of their independent contracts. I also joke that with programs, I get to be the preacher of the humanities. I get to be outward facing and really kind of tell the gospel of the humanities. And I really like being in that position, so.
So, and I get the more technical side, but the best part of what I do is that I get to infuse funding into projects that are happening in communities, led by the communities themselves. You know, we're just supporting humanities work that's already happening, right? So it's a really cool place to be. So we have, I think, 4 different granting opportunities. So, can we go to them? Okay, this just talks a little bit about the different types of projects that we support. It's not a complete list. We really encourage innovative projects, things that we haven't seen before, reaching new audiences on new topics. But in the humanities space, we see a lot of projects that are speaker series, lectures, we see film screenings, plus panel discussion. We fund certain aspects of cultural festivals, which is really cool. Then I was going through your website, trying to figure out everything that you do, and I think the festivals and sort of this infusing funds into cultural programming can help with economic development. I know we've been working with MSU Extension and some of their reimagining rural programs to do the same thing, right? Like trying to get these communities that are trying to build up their just bringing more culture to the community or bringing something back that hasn't been there in a while. This is a great type of project for us. Preservation projects, and we see a lot of oral history projects. We funded a project in Butte called The Story of Butte, where they created a walking tour and they created a website that enabled them to catalog different articles and photos and stories that as you're on your walking tour, you can access that information like, in real time, which is really cool. We helped fund the couple different projects for the Crow Language Dictionary, which was really cool with the Crow Language Consortium, helping with their media app, online dictionary, and then the print version as well. I think lots of funders in Montana helped with that, but we were really proud to be able to support that. Writing workshops, those kind of happen all over the state. And the podcasts and radio shows that are really popular. We all listen to podcasts, right? So it's fantastic to have, to be able to fund some of those episodes or the full podcast production. Authors visits, panels, and we also have a film and video, so we fund a lot of documentary filmmaking. So, next slide. There you go. Okay, so our 4 grant opportunities, we are able, because we're a pass-through entity for the federal funds, we are restricted to award funds only to nonprofit or organizations that are solely instituted for nonprofit purposes, right? So you can see in the blue column there a list of the different organizations. Yeah.
You know, under the Tax Cuts Act, tribes are recognized as nonprofit.
Yes, absolutely.
I look at your eligibility criteria and nowhere do you mention tribes.
Well, I think it doesn't say that on there? Yeah, so on our website and in our, like our guidelines and our RFPs, it does list this full list, so you'll see, that it is state, local, and federally recognized Indian tribal governments, and, any type of tribal organization, everybody's eligible. So to your point, yes, it's just not on that, I'm sorry, but we do.
The only criteria doesn't mention it, you know.
Yeah, we can definitely update that if it's important. But it is, you're right, every tribal organization community is eligible for it. And these are the 4 current grant opportunities. So we have these mini grants up to $2,000. There are rapid response grants, so there's the application simplified, the reporting process is simplified, and the response time is about 4 to 6 weeks. So if you have a project, it could be part of a larger project where you just need that extra $2,000, or it can be a full project, whatever it is you might need help with. But yeah, we ask for requests at least 4 to 6 weeks before whatever project activity that you want us to fund begins. The community project grants are offered 3 times a year. April, August, and December 1st, and those are between $2,000 and $10,000. Sometimes we'll offer awards greater than $10,000. It just kind of depends on the project and what you really need, and that's something you can address on a case-by-case basis. And the community project grants are just that, they're more project-based, so they're things that have like a beginning, middle, and end. But they're still open, right? Any type of humanities content or any of those formats or formats that aren't even included on that list, those are all fundable.
So who determines the matching requirement? Do you guys do that, or is that set?
Because we're funded through NEH, we have certain cost share match that we're responsible for to report for our grant. So for the mini grants, we do not require a match, but the community project grants we do. However, I know cost match can be a barrier to applying for funding, but I am a strong advocate that if you're a nonprofit or a tribal organization, that you are investing time and resources, that it's not cash, right? It's in kind, it's donated goods and services, it's, the cost of the facility you're using, but it's donated. If you have staff working on something, whatever their salary is, you can include that as match, volunteer time, materials, whatever that is. So I work really closely with potential grantees and awardees to make sure that they're monopolizing their in-kind contributions so that they're not reliant on another cash income source.
Yeah, 'cause
because I know
we're
that's a challenge.
typically cash-strapped communities with not a lot of non-restricted funds to do this kind of stuff. So, I mean, that makes it really difficult to match $10,000 to,
Right, and I've been in that position before with other organizations and trying to get the funding myself. So I understand that, but I really believe that there's more in-kind contributions that you're not capturing that can become your match.
that helps a lot.
Yeah, and we don't ask for receipts or anything like that for our cost share match or our final reports. We just ask that you keep a record. It's the nice benefit of being a nonprofit pass-through, right? Like I think state agencies have a little more, we may have a little more red tape to kind of get through there, but we have the luxury of trusting our grantees that they have the documentation for their purposes. If we are audited by NEH can't contact any of our grantees, they have to talk to me, and then I have to call you, and I'm not super scary. So, and I will help you find a way, because I don't want anyone to have to return funds or feel intimidated by the process. So that's my personal goal. But yeah, so that cost match, totally understand the challenges, and I want to work with everybody to try and make that less of a hurdle. We offer film and video grants in 3 stages. So those are up to, we have a pre-production, which is your research, it's your interviews, it's your script development, and that's up to $8,000. And then we support production, so filming for filmmakers, and then post-production, which is final editing and dissemination of the film, so taking the film on the road and trying to get it out to the public. So we see a lot of, that's my favorite grant category, is to get to work in this really cool space.
So I might have missed this, how many of these do you actually give out?
We give out as many as we can until the funds are gone. So the mini grants, we don't really have a cap on it, they're available until the funds are. So our annual grant making budget is $150,000. So it's not big, but we know that Montanans can make, they can do a lot with a little. So we know that $2,000 might help make or break a project. So the community projects, so all in all, our average annual number of grants is about 50. So
Okay.
we're funding over 50% of the requests that come into us.
Okay.
The community project grants in film and video are definitely more competitive. But mini grants, if you come in sort of at the beginning of our fiscal year, which is November through February, we fund just about everything, unless it's like completely outside of our scope. But for the most part, we want to fund as much as we can. And we hope that budget for regranting grows. We're working really hard to increase that, and then we're gonna look for non-NEH funds so that we can provide unrestricted grants that can help with personnel, facilities, things that are needed, those capacity building grants that are hard to come by. So we're working on that. And then research fellowships, but they're under construction. So it's really, we've had them for a while, but we just haven't had a lot of interest, and then we haven't seen a ton of results from the project. So we really want to restructure them so that they're benefiting scholars, whether they're community scholars or academic scholars or students that typically have less access to funding for humanities research. So that's something I'll ask in just a minute, but I'm really interested to learn more how we could support faculty and students at tribal colleges with research fellowships. So, yeah.
What would the typical funding amount be for a research fellowship?
So traditionally it's been $4,000, but I'd like to double that.
Okay.
So I'd like to see, and this is just me, this is unofficial. My hope is that it'd be a summer fellowship because that seems to be a good time frame for, and it'd be 4 months. So you get 2 installments, $4,000, halfway we kind of are really into your research, and then the second half would be after you've presented your research findings. So that could be a virtual presentation, it could be a presentation in your community, just so that you can share what we've learned with the general public. So my hope is that I can.
Great, and let's see, what, I think I thought I had can it be combined with other funding?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm thinking about
And
the economic impact study. We've been trying to get legislature to appropriate funding for an economic impact study of the Native American community on Montana as a whole, and that has not been going very well. And so I think that the best approach would probably be to fund it privately through a nonprofit, so we can get that across the finish line. So this is great. Thanks.
And we can fund individuals for research fellowships.
Great.
It's the only category you don't have to be a nonprofit, you can be an individual, apply and receive funding. So if you have any researchers, it's a great opportunity for them. So I should open those back up. Typically they've been due in December, but I found in talking to people that August is a better deadline, especially if they're working for, if they're in education. because they need to know what their next summer might be before they start the current academic year. I'm learning all this, so. Okay, any other questions about those or grant making? I gave you the 2 RFPs for mini grants and community project grants. But when you go to our website, there's just a lot of information. There's guidelines, there's informational webinars. I'll have how-to videos, and then anyone can access me at any time, and I can help. I get folks that pitch projects to me, and then we just talk through it and see where we might be able to support.
And I would just say onto that, we want to be accessible, so we answer phone calls, we answer emails. If we're invited to a community, we want to show up, we want to be there and meet with you all, so. If there's ever any questions, programs, or grants, please reach out to us and we'll talk through it, and we will answer that voicemail or that email or just pick up the phone, so just want to make a plug for that, so.
Yeah, we're not, again, we're not any age, we just have any age funding. So we get to be a little more approachable, and that's my personal goal, is to make sure that people feel comfortable calling me. Unlike when I was seeking grants and I would be afraid to call grant officers or afraid to call a funder just for fear of being intimidated. So that's not the case, and it's just me on the other end, so.
I'm gonna sit down.
Okay.
And take notes.
So, this is the second part. I'm really grateful that, we have this opportunity today to kind of learn from you how we might be able to better offer programs and grants for, Indian country and different tribal communities. NEH launched, and this is the name of the director of NEH, that's what I was trying to look up. It was Sheila, I can't remember. It was her personal initiative, like she really wanted to see this happen. So United We Stand was a supplemental funding initiative that we were able to access. And United We Stand is really to look for opportunities to offer programs and grants to combat hate-based violence and create more opportunities for civic engagement and community cohesion. So there's a much longer list, and I'll talk about that, but we want, in order to do that, we need to know what type of funding might be better, right? Like what else could we do, and then what type of programs and speakers would be more suited to this conversation. So, yeah. So right now, this is sort of the list of different activities that were outlined in the initiative. So we're looking for grants and programs or opportunities to deliver grants and programs that inspire community conversations about historical inequities in Montana, identifying successful strategies to combat polarization and divisiveness, increase media literacy efforts, expand the role of youth and civic engagement projects, facilitate discussions on difficult issues, and improve cross-cultural understanding. And this funding for us goes through September of this year. So we're just trying to learn as much as we can. We're also looking for research fellows to help us. And we also, I'm really interested in, we offer free grant writing workshops in collaboration with the Foundation for Montana History. So it's a collaborative event, and I'm looking for any organizations, colleges, museums, libraries, whatever that might be interested in hosting us. It's totally free. It's one day, and we just come and we talk about sort of those basics of grant writing. We talk about the different grant writing or grants available through both organizations. And they've been really successful, but they're free. So I'll go anywhere between now and September. So if you know anybody that might be interested, just let me know. So, yeah. Oh wait, those are new programs. Okay, so we're just gonna take a second to ask questions. So can you go back to the other one? I'm sorry. So what we really want to know is sort of like which of these, and maybe some that aren't listed, do you think are most important, especially
for Indigenous and Native American communities? Like what type of programs might we offer? What type of grants might we offer that would really support
All,
all of them?
each one gets home someplace. It's pretty.
What are,
But I'm saying not for us, but for the communities, our border towns that, you know, a lot of us are next to need this kind of training.
yeah, so what could that look like? A training or a
I
program?
don't know, you
Like-
bring a horse to water and you make them drink. That's the tough part and what we've always been dealing with. You know, like either Harbin, East Haver, Olson, you know. It's all the same thing, you know?
So we know that there's no simple solution, right? We know that it's not, these programs are gonna fix it in a minute, but we want to see more programming talking about the humanities, right? Like the humanities are how we learn, how we take facts and give them to the public, because I know, and I think others know, that sometimes the first story you hear is the only story you remember.
It's always negative.
It's negative, so we want to have programs and grant-funded programs that can offer real information to the public so that they can create new stories, and have new conversations.
You know, I'm thinking of a program, you know, that would be specifically for a tribal community about living, living in strength and dignity through the arts, because, you know, I think if somebody is racist, I feel like oftentimes that's a core issue, and it's not about lack of information. It is a character flaw, and that is harder to educate out of someone. But what I find more meaningful is people who are victims of that, people who, and it's a type of bullying. Racism is a form of bullying. And so, and I think about racism differently because of the training that I've had on bullying. People who are bullied, the part of the pleasure center of their brain lights up when they are bullying. They get something out of it, like some people get something out of eating chocolate or gambling. Bullies get pleasure from bullying other people. Racists get pleasure from being a racist, from degrading another human being. And I think that I would be more interested in programming that was for the people who are victims of that. How do you live a dignified life, and how can art help you to have a voice and to be strong and to say the truth when it's not popular to say the truth? I would be more interested in that, because that's what so many of us have to do every day. We have to stand in the midst of really undignified behavior and be dignified. And we are always the bigger person. So, you know, I think about when my tribe has meetings sometimes with Lake County, we have to bring in extra police officers, not for us. Because sometimes they have brought people in who have threatened us violently. But when we go to their space, they don't have to bring in extra police officers, because because we don't do that. And so it's this constant being dignified, being the bigger person. And children are often placed in those positions, and sometimes with their teachers. And I'm a poet, you know, I'm you know, the author of 5 books, so I've spent a significant part of my time in the arts, and, you know, my life still is, I'm a writer. And so I think about how many artists, whether it's through writing or through visual art or through anything, found a voice and found a path to their own beauty through the arts. And how art can help you as a victim of racism find a path back to your own beauty and have that discussion. That there are some things that you cannot change, that you have to live with.
So speaking more to community resiliency.
Yes.
through humanities and arts programming, and how
That specifically address racism.
Just so, I mean, that's such a.
And depression.
It's a
because
burden.
those things are alive and well. And this is, you know, one example that I use a lot. My daughter's 23, and she's 23, and when she was in middle school, she applied to go to a private high school in New Hampshire. And her middle school guidance counselor didn't send her grades, didn't send her transcripts to the school in New Hampshire. And so my daughter innocently walked down to her high school guidance counselor and said, she just forgot. This was in Missoula. So she walked down and said, you know, can you send my transcript? She said, I didn't send your transcripts because kids like you don't go to schools like that. And my daughter did get in and she graduated. And so, you know, we just have to, on and off the reservation, people of color, it's a constant battle. It's constant and it's exhausting. And so art is a reprieve. And I think a lot of schools in Montana don't offer art programs anymore. It's one of the first things to get cut. And it's one of the things that really is a lifeline for vulnerable students especially.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Chairman Penny, comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same, kind of similar, just to kind of bounce off of that is, you know, cultural identity. But, that in itself too is a navigation just internally, you know, in your tribe, in tribes. There's kind of sometimes almost some internal turmoil with some of that, you know, are you too traditional, you're not traditional enough, but, you know, we're all in the way that we are today. And knowing where you come from really helps you survive, you know, like things like unintentional racism really drives me nuts. Sort of like being ignorant and being racist still is racist, and that really drives me nuts. But yeah, I mean, we'd like to say that we've come, you know, a long way, but it's still there, you know, when you shop, you know, whenever you do business, like even with, you know, it's kind of funny how when we get visitors, they'll immediately say, well, you know, I'm trying to understand things, you know, right? And they're coming to the presentation, and then at the same time, they're kind of saying racist things, and they don't really quite realize it, but they don't want to. So education in any way, shape, or form, I think is great. I think this is a great path that you're taking here. I think that tribes might have some ideas through like immersion schools, and we have a learning lodge where, you know, it's like a spin-off of an immersion school in the southern end of the reservation, and, you know, folks like that, you know, would be good for folks, I think more big, little brochures and, you know, education too, you know, would be helpful. But yeah, that's what I see is like that unintentional racism that still exists. And it's just with education, I guess, to try to understand, or just don't really understand why there's, you know, how people can still be unintentionally racist when, you know, we're being good to everyone else, and then yet you still get this, and you're just like, wow, still don't get it. You hear it in like graduation, you know, ceremonies. We've had some colleges with speakers that have completely blown it, you know, from, you know, you've seen the news media, just completely like, that's the advice that they're giving younger people and graduates. And it's just like, wow, still there. But yeah, I think this is a great effort. Keep up the good work, and we'd be happy to give some suggestions of contacts from Fort Belknap that we'd like you to connect with. In particular, you know, anybody from the college and these other schools, you know, we'd like to see some local schools participate in a lot of your programming. I'd like to see that. I'll have to ask them if they're involved, and if they're not, I will encourage them to do so.
Yeah, I appreciate that, thank you, and I'm sure are we out of time? Okay, there's so much more. So based on what we just shared about our programs and our grants, like, do you see any barriers to applying for those or for booking those programs, or is there something else you'd like to see? Because we have this unique opportunity to create granting and programming. We obviously have our framework that we have to work within, but the topics and the projects and who we can fund is pretty open. So we just want to see, we want to create programs and grants that are of interest, right? We want to know from Montana, like, what do you want? You know? We don't want to pretend we know.
I don't think there's any barriers. I mean, just learning about it is the first step. And us being exposed to this and exposing our community, I think will open the door, you know, because we're used to grants.
Yeah.
We got it right. We do that,
Yeah.
so.
You know, one thing one of my dear friends says a lot is she says that, my friend Julie June, she always says, Indians have always been international citizens because we have always interacted with people from other nations. And so would there be a possibility of developing some kind of a program to connect tribes in the United States with tribal people elsewhere through the arts? You know, if there's a tribe in Brazil or if there's a tribe in Bolivia, to somehow make a connection through the arts.
Absolutely.
I think that could be interesting.
We actually did fund a project like that last year, so it was led by a program at MSU Billings. It's a professor who had been taking students to the Amazon to meet with a poet and an author, and then like a civil rights leader. And they've been doing this project for years, but he said, you know what, we need to bring these individuals here. So they brought them here, but then they worked with Crow elders to create this program around watershed communities. So they were looking at the relationship and the similarities between tribal communities in the Amazon and tribal communities in the Yellowstone watershed. So it was really interesting. And I know it was small, but it was that international connection, right? They brought everybody together to share stories and poetry and just talk about the similaries. So it was like kind of,
I don't know. I mean, I guess it would be up to each community how they wanted to do that, but I know that David Spear, who teaches photography at Tuigle River School on the reservation, his students did a pink dress project. So students in Mexico, it was the same pink dresses. They took pictures, young people wearing these pink dresses, students in New York, students on the Flathead Reservation, and then there were shows with all of their photographs together in Mexico and Montana and New York. So it was a really cool project. But I think, you know, there's lots of ways that I think Indigenous students from here can be connected to Indigenous students elsewhere through the arts.
I just had someone from the Polynesian Culture Club in Dillon at Western. And they were talking about something like that, getting students to connect with one another to talk about dance and like the art of making their costumes. Like it was pretty, I could see lots of benefit to that, or at least, I don't know what that would look like, but it would be really cool to promote like a cross-cultural grant opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Anything else? Is there anything we could, what other questions could we be asking to help drive our grants and programs?
I like that there's civic engagement on there, connected to the arts. I think that's really interesting. Yeah, I'm glad to see it on there.
Well, I guess we are open and interested in learning more, so if you do have anyone that might be interested in our grants or programs, or just sharing more about what types of grants and programs would help address some of these issues, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Got Commissioner Rice online. He's wondering if he can get copies of these slides. Can I send him a copy?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, this is really helpful.
Oh, yeah.
You fund any cultural events, say, or powwows?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd like to see more of that. I haven't seen, like, I started like a year and a half ago, and I go through the grants to see what types of projects we funded, and I don't see a lot of requests coming in to support powwows, but we should be, right? Like, that's a perfect opportunity for us to support, like, it just makes sense, right? So I don't know how to get our grant, like, news about our grant opportunities to the right people, right? Because I just think I can't think of a better
It's
type
a
of
good
festival.
start right here. I mean, this is the first
Okay.
time that I knew you guys offered these grants. I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool.
Do you have a Facebook presence?
We do.
Oh, there you go.
There is a page called the Montana Native American Community, what's it? Montana American Indian Community. It's a community events page. It's pretty easy to find, but that's how I get information out, and lots of people see it. Also, there are a couple of organizations, I'm happy to connect you, that would just put it out on blast. So Rocky Mountain Tribal Leaders, Native American Development Corporation, have email lists, and you just went, hey, could you send this to your folks? They'll do it.
Oh, yeah.
I would love that. Yeah, because the more I can get the word out, the better we can get money out.
Well, one thing, we have a large number of young people in our community who sell their art, their beadwork or their T-shirts that they've designed. So, I would say it might be helpful to have some education specifically geared towards young Native artists on how to monetize their art, whether it's through marketing or however they do that. But I see a lot of young people in my community who sell their art. And to cultivate that, and how you monetize your art, and what other resources are there for Native artists, because I think there's a market there, but there's not really, the ones that I know kind of just sell locally, and I always try to support as many as I can, but it's how do they get their art into a bigger market, maybe, if they're interested in doing that. And whether it's through, graphic designs on T-shirts or beaded earrings or, I don't know, whatever, but we have a lot of young Native artists in our community. I'm sure other reservations do too, young people who sell their work.
Yeah. I was gonna ask one more question, it's more just grant oriented, but I had a conversation with Sam Azur. She's at Fort Peck Community College, but she was talking about all of the grant funding for STEM-based education that was coming into the college, and then she was asking me, like, these are great, but we have to have a cultural component to be able to really get people interested in STEM, or to be able to just make it culturally relevant, right? And so I'm just wondering if that resonates with anyone, like trying to infuse or add cultural programming or funding for research to go along with some of that STEM curriculum. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, she's working on some health initiatives, but it was about food sovereignty and trying to bring the history of food and culture into this health-based grant. So she was trying to figure something out, and I was just curious if that is happening elsewhere. And I think that's also, like, our grants aren't just like literature, philosophy, and we're looking for environmental humanities projects, digital humanities. We're looking for things outside of those traditional humanities spaces, so.
Interestingly enough, an organization reached out, they're bringing in a speaker who also, Raekwon Evans, is he ringing a bell? Okay, you could probably speak. He was a big time basketball player from Montana. And he wants to host a clinic in Poplar, but also offer motivational speaking and they reached out to me to ask if I knew of anybody who would help with like snacks and stuff. Should I direct them?
Yeah, so this is where we get into the sticky part with the federal funding, so we can't provide funds for meals or refreshments for public audiences.
Oh,
I know,
okay.
at least I have an answer.
Yeah, thank you.
There's very specific things that they won't let us fund,
I will state that, you know, if he were a speaker on Montana Conversations, we would be able to pay for his program, that way the budget loosens up on the other end to have food.
Okay.
You know, so there's a way to work around that essentially. That would be a speaker that I'd be interested in talking to.
Excellent.
That's a great question, so that's why I say if you have anyone that's interested in the grant opportunities, like I will talk with them and try to figure out the best way to construct the proposal so that it's things that we can fund and help work with organizations and individuals to figure out, like, if you have an expense like meals for public audiences, where else can we, like, what else can we fund so that you have the money to do that? So I'll work really closely with folks on that.
Sounds good. Great. Thanks.
Thank you again. Anything else?
Scott Harris on your speakers.
What's that?
Scott Harris, is he one of your?
He's not one of our speakers.
Todd's actually the one who asked me
Oh.
to help with Rick. Yeah.
But I would love to know him and, if there's a.
It's on my list to
Okay.
point them in your direction.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, I'll say typically the way that I find out about a speaker is coming to meetings like this, or, you know, for example, above Rock in Hardin, one of the school principals there called me and said, I have this speaker that I want to bring in, from Fort Belknap, boarding schools. I can't fund it, how can we make this work? And I said, oh, well, like, I want to have Native voices talk about that history. If you have a speaker that has that history and wants to talk about it with our schools and with our communities, if you write an introduction, I'll talk to him about Montana Conversations. And now we're starting to have contracts go out and bring him in as a speaker. So typically that's the way, it's just spreading the word and.
Yeah, and they have a nonprofit
Wonderful,
as
yeah.
well.
And, you know, we work with.
You've got the license plates too.
We work with speakers who run nonprofits and, you know, the honorary that we pay goes to that
Great.
nonprofit, so.
Awesome.
All of that.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
We left lots of flyers here if you're interested.
We always come carrying lots of printed materials, so thanks for working with us on that. So.
All right, well, looks like lunch. Oh, please, go ahead.
Perfect, so, I wanted to facilitate a discussion regarding House Bill 19. And some of you, I don't know if everyone's familiar with that bill or not. It was passed, May 2023. My office, we've been tasked with, coordinating the efforts to create a system to, can you shut that? Sure. We've been tasked with creating a system to carry out this bill. And I took this actually straight from the bill itself, but functions of the Department of Commerce regarding this bill. Okay.
It locks.
Did it all? Functions of the Department of Commerce for this bill, in collaboration with the Stead Commission, tribal governments and other partners, develop a system for the gathering of data, allowing the department to quantify on an ongoing basis the economic contributions of the tribes in Montana. And then also, the aim is to collect and disseminate information regarding the advantages of developing 4 categories: agricultural, recreational, commercial, and industrial enterprises within the state. So essentially what we have started working on, my team and I already, we've had a few meetings already and more to come, is creating what we are going to set up as a dashboard, an online dashboard that would house all of this economic data as it pertains to Indian country And as it pertains to those 4 categories, and Mary, you can go to the next slide. These 4 categories is what we're going to work on creating a dashboard to just showcase that Indian Country does indeed, as we know, have a huge impact on the Montanan economy. And so it's something that we will set up data that's ongoing, that shows real-time data for these categories. And for these 4 categories, we've already identified, as you can see my bullet points, different organizations and stakeholders who would be able to assist us with the creation of a dashboard and getting the data as it pertains to these categories. One thing I guess I wanted to bounce off of you commissioners was, coming up with more potential stakeholders that we're not thinking of, that could help us with this project. Recreational, that's basically, with Rochelle, the tourism aspect. But we have several stakeholders already who we've identified. Some of these other ones, not so much, like industrial, we have NEDA, our CDFIs, and then agricultural, USDA. We have a few contacts who I think could be a valuable resource, but basically I just wanted to facilitate a conversation, a discussion on this House Bill 19, just to be sure we're checking all of our boxes, and if there's anyone who we're forgetting who could help us with this project, I want to be sure we are aware of it. And I don't know if any of my other colleagues have anything else to add to it, feel free, but yeah, I just kind of wanted to see if there was any ideas as it pertains to these areas, so.
TJ, I don't think, Chairman, excuse me, I don't think they're ready now, but the American Indian Governance and Policy Institute at University of Montana has indicated an eagerness to work in any of these spaces. They just onboarded a new executive director, so it might be a little bit of a few months, like even before they're ready, but I think keeping them on the back burner is a good idea.
Okay, maybe he can help too, Department of Labor. Sure. Collecting some of this data, Donnie's new to that position, so. Yeah.
Yeah, I briefly talked to Donnie, met him a few weeks ago, and he seemed like he was really helpful already, so, absolutely. Yeah.
So this is the bill too that we were talking about.
Yes.
Bill asking for funding for this?
We already have some set aside funding to implement this, but basically, we're in the beginning stages of figuring out how we're gonna tackle this giant. But really, we're just trying to identify stakeholders who can help us collect and centralize the data.
So, Chairman, can I make a comment? Department of Ag, I mean, like they used to put out, like in 2017, they used to put out like, sort of like a census of different, tribes included, about different ag. Are you telling me that they're gonna actually put out some data? That'd be great, because I haven't seen anything since 2017.
It's really, that's mostly a brainstorming idea, so we haven't been in contact to see if they can actually follow through with that. But
and then I just wanted to add one more thing that Department of Homeland does have a USDA cooperative agreement with the DC office for a tribal federal liaison, Kyle Stiffar. And so he works, with local FSA, NRCS, on governmental issues with USDA and tribes as well. So I'll give you his contact information.
So where did tribes fit in?
So
in helping provide this data.
So the bill outlines, if you could actually go back one slide. The bill actually says, where's it at here? Tribal government, so a basic collaboration with tribal governments. I guess that would be something we would have to talk about too. I don't know how that would work as far as directly approaching the tribes to see if they would enter into some sort of data sharing agreement, or we could use some of the information that they would give us to put on the dashboard. A lot of the stakeholders who we've identified are, like, one of them would be like the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, potentially helping us with models that they already have in place for data, and basically just kind of not reinventing the wheel, but using that as a model.
And, Chairman, I have another question about data, so validating data, when we apply for grants or anything like that, sometimes we have to use census data. But like sometimes like even our own tribal enrollment data from our own enrollment office is not honored for population counts for tribal members on a reservation, things like that. So make sure that you check out the data validation process, or who's putting data up. I mean, is it gonna be like super strict and then we just go back to the census anyway, so then you just put a link on there and we're done. So I just have a question about that.
In Chairman, if I may, that's a great point. Our office, our legal department works with the tribal governments on census numbers for the interests of our revenue agreements with the tribes. And so that might be a really good way to cross-reference, because the tribe has a say in that number, and and they're certified and it comes straight out of our office. So we can keep that in mind too.
It only counts tribal enrolled members. It don't count the people from Fort Belknap, Navajos, all the other ones that are living on the reservation, so.
Yeah, because on the next slide, I think this is a lot of kind of, the federal stuff is missing here too, that provides a lot of funds to us that we might not, that we will have to give you that information. Wow, federal. I mean, oh, yeah, and it's all about a lot of health.
User populations for third-party billing.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a lot of
Huge.
stuff missing there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to add a little bit more, so I guess it was back in the 2000s, early 2000s, that there was a LEAP study that was done that determined what the economic contributions of the tribes were to the state of Montana.
Yep.
And during like a 6-year period that was studied, and this was before Little Shell became federally recognized, it was like $6.6 billion, around $1 billion a year added to the state economy, and that brought in healthcare, education, colleges. So what we're hoping to get is some guidance from the Tribal Relations Committee, the State Tribal Relations Committee, that we have to report on our progress to show that when we focus on these 4 areas, does education and health fall within potentially industrial? Is there, because if we are excluding those data points, then we are not getting a full picture. There'd have to be some pretty explicit caveats as to what data sets are not included in the calculation for this project.
But it would make it inaccurate though, because for the Little Shell without a reservation, we've received $50 million in CARES and ARPA funding that all went into Great Falls and the surrounding community.
That's right. So that's where part of our idea of coming to talk to you guys about this first is to get some guidance to you about some of the things that you're saying are missing, some of the places that we need to get additional contributors to, and then also a strategy for how to go about potentially getting cooperative agreements for data sharing with each tribal nation, which I know can be a very challenging thing. There is a language in the bill that allows for things to be stricken to protect private information or proprietary information. So there may be a way to do that, but I think we're also asking for some guidance on what would be the best approach for how we could even broach the subject with the tribal nation on whether or not they would be willing to entertain a cooperative agreement for data sharing. So thank you for giving an answer to that, yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'm happy to help with that. I think this was the best, most efficient and cost-effective solution as an alternative to redoing another economic impact report. That report over the period of research time ended up costing around $200,000. And there's just no way we were gonna get that from the legislature. That doesn't mean I'm still not working on trying to find the private funding to do like an actual report. But with this dashboard, quite honestly, I don't think it'll ever be like to the dollar accurate, probably not even within the thousands of dollars, but if we're talking about an economic impact of $1 billion, having that margin of error, I think is totally appropriate. We also wanted to provide an opportunity for tribes to opt in, and, you know, in respecting that sovereignty, you know, you don't have to participate, this is how things are looking, but also, I might like to have a conversation, because my office is redoing our state tribal activities database, and there's some things that we track that could be, maybe we could collaborate on some data sharing there, and we're also revamping things to make it a lot more user friendly. So, as long as you guys are doing this and I'm doing my thing, we should be talking and see how we can work together. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or?
I'll check my thought. Yeah, we referenced the leakage studies, a lot of us have used qualified economists to do leakage studies on the reservation, and although that's a bad deal to us, that we're not getting money spent on the reservation, it still shows that contribution to the state of Montana. Folks like the Little Shell wants to be 100% to Great Falls, et cetera, et cetera. We also have a leakage study that we've done by Michael Schumann, he's a renowned economist that did our leakage study. That might be some data that could be shared to show maybe on a table or something that shows that although this is a loss to the local economy, it's still, you know, a contribution to the state, because most of our vendors are business vendors, most of our department store shopping, food shopping and everything else, mechanical, you know, work, everything, windshield replacement, everything is off reservation.
Right.
So that in itself would show some data, perhaps, you know, on the table, you know, from each tribe that might have a leakage study, and if they don't have a leakage study, they ought to get one, you know, and then that way, you know, we can kind of like show that, because that is dollars spent to the state of Montana, taxable dollars, you know, that are going into the state of Montana. That might be something that, you know, could be added under the, I'm not sure, maybe the commercial side, I'm not sure. Thank you.
You know, earlier you was talking about the truth. You know, the truth is that the dollars are spent in the communities. And a few years ago, I was on a panel on economic development in Havre, Bill County. I used a statistic from Fort Belknap, Fort Peck and Browning, all along the High Line. How much money we contributed to those communities. You'd hear a pin drop. They didn't believe me, you know. It's something that I wanted. I don't know what our tribal treasurer decided not to get into that. She's a finance person, and I'm just chief staff, so she had a little bit of talk that I did. She writes the checks. So there's some information that you said that is privileged.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one example that does come up a lot, I mean, obviously, we're in basketball season right now, and, you know, I just went to some games last week, you know, but, you know, they go off, you know, tribal members go off the reservations, they go and spend money at these games, and then where does that money go, you know, it doesn't go back to the tribal nations, so it just, you know, things like that, you know, there's a significant impact that any country has on the economy, and, so, but that's all I have, so.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on, Chairman Gray, so it goes back to that, we have an annual shootout at the Metro.
Yes.
And the gate money, I gave it all back to the schools. So we have all Indian refs, we have a halftime, all Indian entertainment, there's all Indian. And, so yeah, we give back to the schools, that the gate money goes back to the schools, all, so we just gave them, this year it was a 2-day tournament, so it was like 1,500 each schools. So that's, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't want to get into that right now, because. No, I'm just kidding.
Like this week, Rocky Boy and Mark Luke will be participating in Great Falls.
Oh, yeah.
That's gonna, last one, leave the rest, us turn the lights up. That's the way it is.
All right, thank you.
One thing you can do is you can go to MHSA and look at their books. They get finances of every tournament. And when I was on that board, you can see where the native schools read the tournaments. Now, that money goes back to the school, but it will give you a good understanding of how much comes into that city.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's huge.
I know that one year that there was no Indian teams that qualified for any state tournaments. Their revenue was
Way down, yeah. Unbelievable, yeah.
When was that?
When you play,
All right, thank you. All right.
Thank you. Thank you. So Marilyn, do we have any of these other schools on here or no?
Chairman Gray, I just got a text message that, Luann Delport, which is supposed to be on at 12:45, is not gonna be able to present.
Okay.
Christina is still supposed to be on for 1:15, so it's up to you if you wanna move some stuff around.
We're gonna have to, yeah. So, sorry, TJ, you're back up.
Hang on, I just closed mine.
Ready? All right, yeah, so I'll just provide a program update. Most of it is just past events I wanted to touch on, and some upcoming events that are on the way. So, if you can go ahead and. So the 2024 Economic Outlook Seminars, they've been put on by BBER, the Bureau of Business and Economic Research with University of Montana. I think it's like 9 cities that they've been going to, putting on a seminar, basically. I know my colleagues have already been, I still need to go. I plan on going to the one in Havre here soon. But their theme was implementing the green energy transition. And so it was, a beneficial event for all of us. And I don't know as far as registrations, if they're still open or not, if anyone cared to attend. Sounds like it's a really good event, so. Okay, and then next slide here, on January 11th, our office was able to provide an update to the State Tribal Relations Committee. Just a little screenshot of that meeting. We were able to just give an update on the status of our programs, and then also we briefly touched on House Bill 19, and basically just told that committee that it's something that we're aware of and working on. Since that time, we've had several meetings regarding House Bill 19, and a lot of our discussions have been around what I presented earlier. And so we have more meetings coming up, and then also too, we plan on revisiting that committee and providing them with an update in the future as to our progress. So, so the Montana Manufacturing Extension Center, MMEC, they've been putting on a managerial and accounting training for commerce staff. They started yesterday. They have day 2 of it today. We lucked out and got to be here with you guys. So, basically it was a good training, definitely heavily focused on economics and accounting, just kind of identifying ways where, we can up our game when it comes to learning more about the accounting side of things and just understanding how the whole picture works. But the presenter he was really good. I forget his name,
Alistair Stewart.
Alistair Stewart. I don't know if any of you know him, but yeah, really, really good teacher, and it was a good training. So we all benefited from that. So upcoming March 8th, my dates might be off on that, Rochelle, is it March 8th through, or 7th through 9th?
So 8th
So-
and 9th for
8th
the
and 9th.
show, but we show up with the vendors on the set.
And I'm sure in Rochelle's update, she'll provide more info on that, but this is an upcoming event that, our whole office will be there in attendance to present, and, we'll have a booth and everything, and so it'll be at the Lewis and Clark Fairgrounds, March 8th through 9th, so. Okay, and then upcoming is also the 2024 Governor's Conference on tourism. It'll be at Hilton Garden Inn in Missoula, April 14th through 16th. It'll be a great event. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be my first time attending, and so I'm really anxious to go and just to see everything that's happening in the world of tourism here in the States. So that is upcoming. A quick update on, oh yeah.
You can offer scholarships for that year?
Would you like to go? We can talk about that in my update. Yeah, I got you covered, sir.
Just quickly to touch on travel business development grant, the FY 2024 application cycle closed on February 11th. We had our review meeting on February 15th. We're still in that review process, going through all of our channels with that. And we had 2 applicants who applied, and we hope to be moving forward with the awardee here very soon. That's my update. Okay. Any other questions or? Thank you. Good. Thanks. Thank you. All right. Go back to Amber.
Hi.
You want to present? Or you want to?
Yeah, Linwood is gonna appear via Zoom as well. If she is present, maybe we could go forward, but otherwise.
So, Michelle.
Yeah. Okay.
Question if you're able to go online to the Department of Commerce website. commerce.og.gov and press that. And then
Thanks so much. Yeah, share the screen, that'd be great.
And then once we kind of get into it, then I'll probably prompt you to click the next buttons, but we'll do it there now.
Hi, everybody. So a lot of things happening in tourism. I want to give you a couple of updates following up with what TJ shared. Native American Made in Montana Trade Show. We have 4 exhibitors this year. We've been able to recruit 4 new members to the Native American Made in Montana program. We did a lot of outreach this last summer, going to a bunch of powwows and events. And I was surveying all the vendors and finding out how many of them know about the Native American Made in Montana program. We recruited 4 new members, and 3 of those new members are being sponsored as first-time exhibitors to the show. And then an existing member also has never been to the show, and so we're exhibiting them as well. I'll bring up this big tourism grant here in just a minute. So for just about the Native American Made in Montana, Friday is the wholesale buyer day. That's March 8th. And Saturday is the public day, March 9th. If you would like to go, please send me an email and I will make sure that there is a guest pass for you made at the registration table. We'd love to have you come. So the 4 exhibitors that we have, we've got Laughing Water Designs, Elisa from Little Shell. We have Gyla, her sister, and I'm blanking on her last name. Her company is Confused Glass. And so it's like glass art and glasswares. Then we have Blue Ribbon Nets, another Little Shell representing, and they'll be there to hopefully secure a bunch of wholesale orders. And then Melissa Tromley, who is a Blackfeet tribal member, and I met her at the Little Shell powwow. She is also a new member to the program, and she does fine art. She does paintings, drawings, sketches, portraits, whimsical pieces, pop art. She does a lot of cool things. So those will be our 4 exhibitors for this year's show. Going on to the Governor's Conference on Tourism, if you would like to go, please send me a message this week that you would like me to secure your registration and accommodations. It is Sunday, April 14th. That's the check-in day in Missoula, the Hilton Garden Inn. Monday morning, the 15th is the first day of the conference. Tuesday, April 16th is the second day. We're quite excited about some of the things we're bringing to the conference this year. On that Monday, we'll be having a breakout session focused on cultural heritage, entrepreneurship in Indian country, where small business operators in the tribal tourism space are utilizing their culture to create business and to preserve their culture through a business enterprise. And so we've got 5 folks on the panel for that. It's not actually really a panel, it's more of like 5 feature presentations, giving each small business operator the floor for 15 minutes for them to highlight and showcase their business and let people know how they can experience Indian country and become a customer. And then that evening is the award ceremony, that Monday night, the 15th. We're in negotiations with the Gayo Powwow Committee out of University of Montana. They are potentially going to be doing a mini grand entry for us to kick off that awards ceremony evening. And we are also expecting, fingers crossed, a very, very special guest for the award show, someone that may or may not be up for a very major award on the national scale. So those are the only hints I can drop, but that's what I'm hoping is going to be a special feature individual for that evening. And then the next day we have Mariah Gladstone in DigiKitchen. She is, of course, a very innovative Indigenous chef, and she does great lectures on food sovereignty, food history, Indigenous culinary experiences. And so she'll be a main stage presenter on Tuesday, the 16th. And we are working with the hotel to prepare cedar tea and maple syrup service for all of the audience to have an immersive experience while they are being edified by her lecture and presentation. And then her breakout session is an Indigenous tea making class. And so we are working with other producers in the state from Native American, Native Montana to help procure those materials and ingredients. And then those that are able to get a seat will be able to learn how to craft an Indigenous tea, have a tea from the landscape, and to inspire visitation, respect for the land, an understanding of all the different medicinal and culinary uses of the plants of Montana. So we're quite excited about both of those elements. The next thing I want to let you know about is March 1st, a big grant is opening. I mentioned at the last STED meeting. This is the Pilot Community Grant Program through the Office of Tourism. So it's not out of my department, it's out of the main tourism department at the Department of Commerce. The Pilot Community Grants, there are 7 awards per cycle, each at an amount of $2.75 million over a 5-year project. The first year is $250,000 set aside for planning and architectural designs, site, there could be like a Department of Quality surveys, things like that, need to have to, you know, make sure a site is appropriate for whatever that project is. So Marilyn, if you wouldn't mind clicking this, what I'd like to encourage you to do is to go to our commerce page, go to Brand MT, and I can also email this out to you, this link. Right here, it says register here. Next week, there is a webinar that talks about this really massive grant program. There are 7 awards. A tribal nation is eligible for at least one of them. But if they're a competitive award against other communities that are applying, more than one tribal nation could be awarded per cohort. So for sure, one can be, potentially up to 2. And then it will repeat each year. So you would register for the webinar, and as she scrolls down here, you'll see there's just a whole bunch of links, the guidelines, the timeline, how to determine if you've got a project that everyone's already been working on but haven't been able to find the money for. Those are strong candidates for this cycle. If you've got an idea but nothing's really been started on it, then this is your time to start formalizing that idea and then prepare for the next cycle to open to apply for 25. So this is the 24 cycle. I can't speak a whole lot to it because it's brand new and it opens March 1st, it closes April 30th. So it's very tight, 8-week cycle. But you can certainly contact Michelle Cushman. You can come and, witness that, participate in that webinar. That would help give some additional information. Some things that I've heard others here share. Richard had a great idea for a zip line at Bear Paw, which would help increase some year-round visitation to Rocky Boy. Jennifer was mentioning the Omo Travel Center. That would be a really great tourism-focused project. These have to be in rural areas of Montana, under-visited areas, or tribal nations. So you're very uniquely positioned to apply for this grant. A couple other things, maybe out of the arbor, where you're looking at additional things that might be needed there. The other possibility is maybe even partnering Little Shell to partner with the Friends of Hell Creek. They have that dream of the wheelchair accessible boat launch and crane. So it's possible they could actually apply and have Little Shell be a letter of support. And they would be the award and be responsible for administering it. And Little Shell can apply for a separate project somewhere else. So those are some ways you might be able to leverage your relationships with your neighbors to bring stuff into your community, or things that will be close to your community that might be a benefit to the tribal nation. So those are the main things I wanted to share. Thank you so much, Marilyn. At the end of Governor's Conference, I'm taking sun tours from Blackfeet. We're going to the International Roundup which is an international trade show for international booking. And so it'll be my first time going to this trade show to secure international booking agents, to encourage travel from Germany, France, Italy, to come to Montana. And they tend to spend more money and stay longer. And so we'll be going this year with Sun Tours to pitch their business and try to secure some of those tours. And then next year, our program will be sponsoring 2 operators that are willing to entertain international bookings. So we're trying to grow that out. And those are the main things.
Any questions or comments for Michelle?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, great, thanks, guys.
Go.
Yeah. We don't need to stop or get the next person, so. I don't have any presentation, I don't think so. All right, but thank you, State Commission, ICE and guests. Luke Robinson. I run the Indian Country Indian Equity Fund, Native American Business Advisors. So I just completed the fiscal year 23 Indian Equity Fund round, and only one grant was given back unsuccessfully due to family, they had a couple of tragedies throughout the year and stuff. So just with all the nephews and grandchildren and stuff like that, the business owner wasn't able to launch their business and stuff like that. So kind of a, thing in Indian Country that happens and stuff. So about $12,000 wasn't used or so. And I think I'll find out with TJ what to do with that money. So going forward, this year, we got 26 Indian Equity Fund businesses awarded, or not awarded yet. It's really slow right now with the new director, I believe. He's doing a great job, but we just need the governor's desk to sign the award letters right now, get them out to the grantees, get their spending going and stuff, and I'll have a short period of time. My last couple of years, I've been doing this in beginning of January, late December, so this is a kind of different year, but I'm again, just glad to say we have TJ to help, so a lot of the other, duties and pressures are relieved, so I can free up my time to do this and focus on the inequity fund, so a good year, I think that it'll go well, press release is coming soon, so I don't have anything, pictures or nothing to show, but it should be there through, social media and whatever other channels, so I want to talk about the Native American Business Advisors, each tribe has a Native American Business Advisor designated, and Fort Belknap should have one this year too as well, so that'll be good. We are looking to keep them in the system, help them with the Indian Equity Fund grant with technical assistance. Last year, they were pulled and removed, and I want to say that kind of discriminates from this year's Equity Fund cycle. Is last year, it was kind of a mess without them, and we had, that one reversion of that grant that wasn't spent because we made a kind of bad decision that way. But this year, I forgot to mention that we had a significant decrease in the number of applications for the equity fund too. Only got like 85 after they added the language that you can only be domiciled within the reservation boundaries and you can't be off-res. But then thankfully, Rochelle kind of helped me out with a map to, like a lot of border towns right there in that area. So we did a 50-mile radius kind of outside the border of the reservation lines besides Little Shell, so. But yeah, so that kind of helped out too, but people still read that and called me and said, you're trying to gather us up to finish us off on the reservation. Yeah, this kind of helped out a lot though, with making that radius at least more acceptable, open to just, I had about 125 last year, 85 this year. You saw that significant decrease just because of that language, I believe. So I want to encourage people to apply for the funds or, what do I have a job for? So that kind of thing, just wanted to say that to the Site Commission. So with the Native American Business Advisors being pulled for their technical assistance last year at the last part of the funding round, that kind of muddled things as well. And it took a little bit of coaxing them to get back into the system, back into the process. So we had to just kind of remind them that we'll be getting the grant funds and stuff, there's no funny business going on and stuff like that, so. But yeah, so they're all good now, and they're back in the system, and they're back on track, we just waiting for the contracts, and that's all I can say about that, so. All right, but I did do this, I talked at a media conference in Butte about this access to capital study that we're doing. Each year I go to the Business Bureau of Economic Research at Outlook and Economic Outlook. And this year they completely got the outlook wrong from last year, 23. They're looking at the wrong numbers and stuff. So they admitted that they're pretty smart experts up there at the universities and stuff. So I did recommend that they have some type of track or something for Indian country. And that's where this access to capital study came out of with Accelerate Montana, Global Capital, or Global Analyst Capital or something with Dr. Jennifer Eastern, Carl Undershoots up at the university. So we did the access to capital study and collected some data with surveys and stuff from Indian country all over rural Montana to look at the funding side of it and the business side of it. So the first part came out a couple months ago, and the second part was the business cycle of it too, and that comes out. It should be coming out soon. They just had a few meetings. I missed those though, but that'll help with Indian country. And back at the media conference that I presented at, I was able to explain kind of to that conference of economic developers, bankers and stuff, of why the numbers are so disparaging for Indian country. And that, when I used to work at the bank, I had one example of when one of the regional managers came up to me and said that, Luke, I just redlined the heck out of your Indian country and stuff like that. So, he's no longer there and stuff, but I was able to work with HR on that. That was good, but just those kind of stories and those microaggressions are kind of just the reasons why our numbers are so disparaging and stuff. With the redlining, Commissioner Downey does a great job with securities and exchange, but we're looking at, yeah, UCC, stuff like that. And I think that this study will help people understand and realize that connection of, you know, funding and stuff like that, with the Indian Equity Fund being a leveraging tool for banking, the Native American Collateral Support Program as well. And yeah, that's kind of all I have on my plate for now. So any questions?
Yeah. You're talking about 50-mile radius.
Yeah.
Our reservation is not 50 miles.
Yeah.
And I think these dollars were directed towards economic development on our reservation. Am I correct?
Yes.
It's, I've sat on this commission for years, and I see the money going to Havre, Montana, Big Sandy, Montana. They're not helping our economy at all. And I hope you understand that, that I'm here to represent Rocky Boy Reservation, not to represent Havre, Montana, Big Sandy, any of those communities outside the radius of the reservation. So I'm just stressing that our people get the first shot. If there's anything extra, fine, you know. But I'm here to represent Chippewa Creek Tribe.
Yes, sir, absolutely. That's good. Yeah.
May I add a comment to that, Chair Gray? So we wanted to make sure it was clear, those that are located on the reservation get additional points on their application to get them to score higher than those that are located off reservation. We just wanted to ensure that we were not limiting tribal members that live all over Montana to give them the opportunity to apply. But if they live on a reservation, they get higher points in the scoring for their review. So it gives them a priority placement in the review.
Any other question? Thanks, Lou. Christina's on. Christina Fleming from CNC Heat Processing. You on, Christina? Christina? You're muted if you're on. Oh, there we go.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Morning.
Okay, you're up.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, sorry. How's it going this morning? We have some beautiful weather up here. I sure thank you folks for inviting me today. I really don't know what to say other than I want to be thankful for the grants that I did receive. I couldn't have done it without the Native American grants to even get started with the business that I've started. If it wasn't for the funding that I received for Native American agriculture, it would be really hard to build the capital to get the machinery that's needed to put out quality food with proper labeling. Yeah, it's pretty nice to be invited to this. I must say, I don't know why I was invited to talk. I must be trying to do something right in order to be invited to Helena's meeting, but I appreciate
it. Well, guys, can you tell us a little bit about your business?
So in 2018, I well, 2016, I received a grant from you folks for $6,000 to start a meat processing plant, I want to say, here on the Blackfeet Reservation. I started cutting Brokey's neck in 2016. So that what really made me become the sole breadwinner. My dad was a butcher in Browning at IGA for about 10 years, and then he was the butcher at the news store. We call it the news store, but Glacier Family Foods here in Browning. And he was the manager of their meat department for 5 years, going on 6. And he just got too old to go risk his life 60 miles in the wintertime around here. And he gave up that opportunity. And at that time, we was both out of a job. So I told my dad, let's do something. We got to keep money on the table, right? Pay the bills, feed the kids, and make sure the animals have a good home, right? So that's how we got started, and we put in for the grant, and I got $6,000 from you folks to get electrical work into a building that was pretty much my dad's storage shed. So when we did that, I couldn't believe the opportunity I was being given. I was working for Swank at the time up here in Mini Glaciers, and I asked to take all the extra material and I used it to build extra from what the 6,000 didn't cover. And so in 2018, I registered with the state my business. In 2022, I received a grant for $150,000 for the meat infrastructure grant. And from there, my dreams was answered. I always wanted to help our native communities and be able to harvest animals in traditional ways, as collecting the saputsis, our guts, and eating all of that. My big goal is to be able to tan hides and be able to make not only to tan, but to do raw hides and to be able to go that route. The big thing that I've always pushed for, and I brought it up to my council members here on the reservation, our Blackfeet reservation, is that I want an all-women's processing plant for traditional ways. Of course, have them, but bringing our women more to preparing our foods again and harvesting our animals and doing it with love and kindness. That's kind of been my goal. One day I dream of being USDA approved, but as far as being a tribal member, I believe in doing our own thing because we've always been pushed to do their way. And in today's world, it don't work like that. You know, we live in our own bubbles on every reservation. And I agree, every reservation should have an equal opportunity to harvest and distribute our animals in our own ways to our own people. And if non-members want to come on to our reservation, then they should be allowed to buy our food from our people. So that's where I'm at and where I stand. So.
Well, we appreciate that. Sounds like a very successful business.
Yeah, I have some very good parents that raised me well.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
How many employees do you have, Christina?
So right now, me and my father are full-time, but I have like 3 employees at all times that I'm paying. And it's not always the same people. I get a lot of people that come in and want a day job or a weekend job, or, you know, just whenever the weather's permitting, I should say, kind of a thing, you know. And I have the opportunity, if I could do rawhide and be able to harvest guts and saputsis, the time that goes into it, I can't do it all. And I'd love to have people come help me so we can harvest these things. Because to clean a set of guts, good, takes about 2 hours. You know, and I don't have that time between harvesting and getting them prepared to, you know, carcass weight and everything. I can't do it. I can't do it also. I try to get as many people as I can to help me. Yesterday we just had the Buffalo Hide Academy in Browning come out and watch us process a hog. So they, couple of weeks ago, we went out and we harvested a buffalo that they received from the tribe, and the school got to come out, all the kids got to come out, watch the animal be killed. We harvested it. They did all the skinning, and then I brought the meat back to my place. And yesterday the school come out. Well, we had a big snowstorm. They didn't get to watch the harvest of, or the processing of the buffalo. So we showed them how to cut up a pig and how you get your sausage and your bacon and your ham. Of course, I ain't smoking that stuff just yet, but in the future.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
I sure thank you, and I thank you from the bottom of our hearts for helping us get this going with the grants that was received. I must say, I thank you folks, because without you, I wouldn't have been able to get going. If it wasn't for the help in Indian country, there is no loan program for fee land, I mean, for tribal lands, and because I don't own no land, you know, and it's hard. It's extra hard on our reservation, especially for Native American women. So I thank you folks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, still waiting?
Is Lincoln not, if not, Donnie and I can just kind of swap spots on the agenda if that's okay.
You're up on it. What are you kidding?
Yeah. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Gray and the committee. I'm Donnie Wetzel Jr. I'm a new tribal liaison for the Department of Labor and Industry. I've been here 4 months. Amber's kind of helped me a lot. I've got to meet, I mean, everybody here pretty much is kind of helping guide me and things like that. And so I'll probably be in better connection with you guys going forward. The tribal liaison position was kind of created to get that bridge between the state, labor and industry, the different parts of it to connect better with the tribes. And I talked with Chairman Gray in the beginning, and you know, I had a pretty blunt conversation. It didn't know much about DLI and what it provided tribes. So I've been digging in pretty deep the last 4 months. And Gibby Reset, the Terra Director of Chippewa Cree, really, and Amber, they started off in a meeting, and we just kind of kicked it into action and started to invite all the Terrell officers and anyone that we could to a meeting in December. We had about 40, 45 people there. I know the AFL-CIO president, Jason Small, who's Northern Cheyenne, which is a real win. Him and I have been talking extensively on how do we improve relationships with the unions and the tribes and really getting our students and youth or anybody who needs a job. And so in my previous work, I was at the Office of Public Instruction, working in education. I was there 13 years. The whole idea is we prepare our kids for a better life and a healthy future. Sometimes the schools I worked in weren't providing the best education for our youth. Sometimes they weren't preparing them for higher ed. And I knew too many that did not go on to college and do much. They sit around the res and hang out and don't do much. So this offered an opportunity to look at different kind of approaches that we can get to our youth, get them certified in a trade, a plumber or whatever. So I'm learning a lot about that. And so I had my first idea was to understand what DLI offers the tribes. And the second part, understand what the tribes offer on their side. And then really the third part would be getting the right people to the table and making some moves. So, I could talk a lot about some of the things going on. I got a agenda for the meeting next Wednesday. It'll be down here. I'll hand that out here. If you guys have any questions. The good thing about it is the tribe is leading it. I'm just helping facilitate, and I'm honored to do that. You know, in the past, I've worked with the tribal nations. At the Tribal Leaders Council, I pretty much have worked with everybody here. And so, we're just getting together and trying to create relationships and knock down walls. Any misconceptions we may have of each other or either side, we try to break down those walls too. That list is getting bigger and bigger, and we're just bringing people together. There's a lot of opportunities that center around somebody getting a job in our tribal nations. There's a lot of support around even childcare and travel and all kinds of things that start to pop up. And so if you guys want to attend this, it's going to be a good deal. We'll be have quite a few folks coming. There's a lot of people coming from the Great Falls College. We brought in the tribal colleges. I met with the tribal college presidents last month and just kind of asked the question, can you not only have the educational track, can you create a trade, career, technical development, entrepreneur track, an apprenticeship track? We have an apprenticeship program. She can probably hit on more, but I met the man, Glenn Disk, and I asked him, could we get an apprenticeship for our cultural ways? Could we create a master apprenticeship program for an auntie that may be great at making moccasins? And he's intrigued with all of it. We talked about, can we create an outfitting apprenticeship program? Because I know in Browning, where I'm from, there's a lot of outfitting, and people will pay a lot to come up into Indian country and spend time. I know in Fort Belknap, Toby Work has that little ranch out there that he told me those guys come and pay thousands of dollars to look at antelope on a horse. So like there's so much opportunities there that people are interested as we open Indian country up to the world, you know. So we had a great conversation with one of our outfitters in Blackfeet about creating a Blackfeet guidance school where it would be based in our philosophies, in our languages, our traditions, and open it up to everyone who would want. And then we create more of those through an apprenticeship program. So sky's the limit on any of this stuff. And so we're gonna work on that. I think the governor might even show up for this one.
I have no designs on saying what the governor's gonna do, but
So
That
the
would be
buzz
awesome.
is, the buzz is around.
Donnie's more connected to
And
the
we
buzz
had
than
to,
me.
yeah, we had to do it before state tournaments. So that's why it's next week.
Should have had that state tournament.
I know, it's good enough.
We tried.
Everybody, we shall can make it, so.
So I'm excited, so it's next
Yeah,
Wednesday.
yeah, we next Wednesday.
We're in.
Awesome.
That's some of the stuff, Amber, do you have
Yeah,
any
so it's
thoughts?
nice to see everybody again. Thanks for the invite and having us. I've spent the last 4 months trying not to be jealous of Donnie, but no, I'm just kidding. I'm super excited to have him come on in this position for DLI. Since I've been working for DLI, I was hired as Equity Diversity Coordinator, as all of you know. I have seen there be so many opportunities for improvement in how we do workforce development in tribal nations, and also for intertribal collaboration is a pipe dream of mine that I've had for a really long time. And I think together, Donnie and I have a shared vision for how that can happen. I hear about the kind of work that's being done, like Christina Clemens meat processing. That's an apprenticeable program. You could easily do something like that. So our focus in this next one, and the reason we're here today, is just to kind of let you know what our intentions are when we're coming and talking to community members that belong to your nations, what we're asking and proposing to do. So it's centered around workforce development. We're gonna kind of try and gear the conversation around what kind of infrastructural sectors in workforce should we focus on that are common to most of the tribal nations. Stuff like Donnie said, childcare, healthcare, transportation, housing, those are all things that contribute to a community's ability to sustain whatever type of workforce development that we want to do. And that's something that came out of the last learning session, kind of, we did together as state representatives, tribal representatives, community representatives, and sometimes we plan beyond what the capacity for sustaining those programs are. And so Donnie had invited a representative from our youth community who pointed out, we need to focus on some of the infrastructural pieces of why these systemic barriers keep popping up in our efforts. And so that's hopefully what we're doing, is talking to a whole bunch of different types of stakeholders that are involved in workforce development where you are. And what we aim to find out is what occupations are the most needed, the most projected to grow in your communities, which ones are getting in the way of being able to have people go to work and stay at work, and how can we bring all of our resources together to address those intertribally. So that's kind of our objective.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up, I'm on a few committees that some big money's coming down the pipe for our tribes, and that's that broadband expansion. The tribes, I know that boat might have sailed a little bit, but they were to be meeting with you all, and there's 80 or 800 million, I don't know. There's a lot, there's millions that's going out for our tribes. So like in conversations with the union and some of, even housing and some of our other programs are like manpower, different programs, our tribes should be developing construction businesses, so you don't need outsiders coming and make those lines or any of that stuff. So that's a big thing coming, where they're digging the fiber lines and stuff. Even running, in our last meeting, Fort Belknap was talking about some of their certification on CDLs, and they have a truck or something like that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Well, Peck has a truck. Can we start to share that on getting CDLs? The young lady she speaks of says, we don't even have driver's ed in Hazel Lodgepole, and that's true.
There's high school students.
Many of our schools in the Indian country don't even have driver's ed, so we gotta always make sure that youth voice is there. But that's gonna be a lot of funding coming. And then we have the Tech Hub, the Headwaters Tech Hub, that Chairman's part of. And, within Department of Labor, we will be putting in a proposal to offer grants to folks that are interested, from the tribal colleges to business creation to whatever around that. That could later lead into roughly 500 million coming out. And so there's this big movement of these things. Every tribe I talk to, they have one plumber. So can we work with housing and create some of those old fellows or old elderly ladies that stepped out? Make them master apprenticeships, get them involved. I understand there's a disconnect of state and tribal recognition of certification. Can we knock those walls down? Can we start to respect and honor that? Can some of our tribally certified members attend some of our meetings at the state and become certified under that? So our commissioner, Sarah Swanson, is 100% behind everything that we're pushing. And it's just fantastic. She's kind of letting us run. And so those apprenticeships are big. We just had a meeting with Stone Child College, the AFL-CIO. They offer an MC3 example.
Well, actually, even if you ask the union reps, they have a hard time remembering about MC3, but what it is core curriculum. That's basic construction pieces of curriculum that is then used by the union to carry on into the specialty trade. So it's like a small chunk that you start with, the introductory curriculum to trades education that the unions use. And the unions are actually funding that for the tribal colleges because it isn't free, but they do have money and they're willing to share that curriculum. So then if the tribal college has that and they can implement that, we can build off of that to make a full apprenticeship program based on that core curriculum.
Yeah, so that's pretty groundbreaking. Stone Child, we presented to other tribes. 3 affiliated tribes is already doing it, so they're gonna kind of, mentor that process going forward. There's also an early childhood grant that I found out last week, of $8 million, that is centered around helping maybe our Head Start, stuff like that. So there's a lot of money out there. We work with Accelerate Montana. They do rapid response training, figuring out unemployment. We had a huge layoff in Hart Butte. Met with some unemployment folks. They sent a rapid response team up there, sat with people, helped them fill out their paperwork. And they offer this dislocated employee program that can pay for someone interested in going to a training instead of seeking a job. I never heard of that before. So there's a lot of stuff. I think that the tribal colleges are right front and center. And we want to do an AmeriCorps program as well. We have a JMG, Jobs for Montana Grads program. It's going to be centered in Indian country. That's a class that gives kids soft skills. There's a $150,000 grant that we received specifically to put this into the reservation communities. In our meeting in Billings, one of the reps from Fort Peck was wondering about the connection into the schools. That could be a connection for the trades and certifications, various things. So can we create a system that provides a relevance that when the kids leave that school, there's a job in their community, they stay home. There's a lot of exciting things. There's a lot of hope, I think, that this all brings. I mean, we got a lot of workforce out there that isn't working. And I want to also do almost a drop the stigma campaign around how people look at folks with trades, pipe, plumbers, this, that. They're making more money with no debt than any college students coming out of college. So why is that? Why are we, and we need them more than ever right now. So I was thinking.
Typically they're making about 30,000 more per year upon completion of their apprenticeship program than a person with a bachelor's degree. And they've already been in their industry for a period of 4 years. So
yeah, right out the gates. So that type of, I might pull some youth together and do like a poster campaign painting for Indian country. It's just start to lift that stigma that we need these folks. We need these kind of certification and trades. So that's a lot. Do you guys have any questions?
Chairman, I have a question, since we're all supposed to be doing data and stuff. Benchmarks, a baseline, for workforce development. I mean, I could give you like a verbal, but I don't have a fancy workforce development sheet that I can give you good data on. but once I put my focus on it, I'm sure I can come up with, there's plenty of data sets out there that show templates to show your workforce. But that might be really important to show state legislatures what we're doing with workforce development on Indian country, to kind of get a baseline, so maybe a simple form that could be sent out to every planning director of the tribes or the terror directors to phone it down, to a baseline of just whatever, that you want to show. And then like over time, then you could show your data success, right? The other thing I wanted to mention was, don't forget about that Native American Career and Technical Education Program. Fort Belknap in 21 had it at ANC, and that had health and science, building technology, business technology, computer science, environmental science, and it also had, the building technology was great because we actually had a lot of young fellows that completed that program get picked up by local tribal, firms and companies, because they didn't have that hand-me-down. I worked with my grandpa, my dad type deal where they learned the trade. So this was really great for them. We picked up a lot of certificate folks like that. Don't have it now, wish we did. I do need a plumber, an electrician, and a carpenter for my expansion to my tribal maintenance, my tribal maintenance department. And then have an apprentice under each of those. So if you find any names, send them my way, because I'd like to bring some more folks on.
It isn't that, first of all, I really appreciate your contribution and that idea about workforce data as a base to use. So thank you for that. And then secondly, I'm always really excited to go and visit with youth in Fort Belknap. They are pretty CTE minded out of a lot of the group. There's a lot of kids that want to do that type of work, and I always find that to be exciting. And we also just revived the conversation with ANC around our healthcare apprenticeship programs. So we're going to start reviving those. They had to hit over COVID, but there is a lot of solutions that we can come to. I think as long as we are making sure that we're hearing the voices of the Native communities we're trying to work in, that's really important to us, and that's why we wanted to come as soon as we started getting a little bit of a group together, and so that you know what we're doing. And if you have suggestions for us, I have to say Commissioner Sangre was one of the people that initially 2 years ago, when we started talking about doing this with Gibby Bressett, was a voice at the table talking about what might bring likelihood of success to us. So workforce development is something that doesn't happen overnight, and it takes repeated and long-term work. But together, I really think we could do some really great movements in Indian country, especially if we look at intertribal joint apprenticeship training committees. Because to your point, almost every reservation I go to is direly in need of facilities maintenance. Managers, they're in dire need of plumbers. And one of the things that we talked about a lot is looking at how can the state have a conversation with the state licensing boards if we have to go to the legislature and talk about possible permit changing? Is that something we can do? I think if there's enough of us, probably, so.
Yes. Any other?
So that too, I think, another good avenue to present to would be the Rocky Mountain Tribal Leaders Council on March 5th or 6th. Meeting, having those guys here, this would be really good.
Rocky Mountain Tribal Leaders?
Yeah, if you want to get put you on.
Yeah, can I get on there?
One more thing,
Yeah.
is the summer youth employment, HRDC actually offers the very same thing that's offered on the reservations if you have your own summer youth employment program, very same thing. So your overflow could be, shared with HRDC, we're already doing that. But one thing that we're piloting, there's no funds surrounding this, is we're doing kind of summer youth, but throughout the year, trying to plug in the summer youth employment concept, but throughout the year. So we kind of picked on some programs to accept and adopt some of these placements throughout the year. And like I said, there's no funds, but that would be something kind of cool for workforce development for the young folks too. So we're really not like tooting our horn on it just yet. We're just trying to kind of figure out how this is gonna work and how the programs can afford it. But we're trying to suck them in, throughout the year, here and there, around, good Lord, athletics is a big thing. A lot of these kids, we don't want them to jeopardize all those previous commitments. We're finding that these high school kids are very busy. during the school year, so we're finding out right away that piloting summer youth all year round is really difficult. So, that's another consideration, but I think it's a good shot for some of those kids that aren't all in athletics, not everybody is, and there's no harm or foul with that. But, for those kids that aren't in the athletic area, not super busy like that in those commitments, they may be the ones that, you know, we can really focus on for all year round, summer youth and fun and stuff.
Yeah, I would love to, if I could learn more about how that program is working.
Yeah, Richard? Yeah, I kind of put a plug in for this meeting, we had it on Wednesday earlier in the meeting, but that's when Vice Chairman Finlay was talking about the Department of Commerce having a workforce development program. And also last Thursday, I sit in every Thursday at 2:00, I sit in the White House informational meeting. And they talked about the Department of Labor also has a workforce development plan for 16 to 24-year-olds.
Yep.
So before I left the res yesterday, I talked to Gibby and told him, look that program up.
Yeah.
Oh, you told Gibby, now we're never gonna get away from it.
I'm gonna see what he finds.
All right, and I'll be doing, coming out and meeting with every one of your tribes. I'll get on your guys' agendas in the spring.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm glad you mentioned driver's ed, because the BIE school, Tweagle, doesn't have a driver's ed program, and the other high schools do, and it's $200.
Yeah, they're expensive.
And so, yeah, and so it's not free.
There's a state program that will pay for the driver's ed instructor, they were just at Fort Belknap like last week. And, there's an application online, but the problem is it's gotta be a teacher, can't be just like a year, you know, year or me volunteering. And then it's also, but it's completely free, so like they have these little scholarships or grants and they're willing to pay for the instructor. Well, they're typically offered in schools, because that's where like all the teachers are at, but, I asked them
OPI.
questions about like, yeah, OPI is offered. I asked them, like, can it be a Head Start, really Head Start teacher, you know, they said, well, it's typically a teacher's gotta be like requirements, you gotta be a certified teacher to be able to perform the driver's ed, otherwise you have tons of volunteers. But they have a program, that will pay for the instructor fee, so that, you know, you can actually put a teacher to work, like, say, for the school year or the summer. So that should help you if you're looking for funds to be your instructor.
Yeah, so I just think that's great that you're at least aware of that that's not accessible to a lot of tribal students, either the, you know, Tweagle's the only all-Indian school on the reservation, they don't have driver's ed, and the other schools do, and you have to pay, and that some people just can't afford that.
I'm wondering if that's because they're a tribal school, BIE school.
They just couldn't find an instructor. That's.
Okay, I'm very familiar with that. We
Yeah.
do that in all of our schools, and try to get folks trained, so I know the tribal ed director.
Yeah.
Driver's ed director.
You know,
OPI, I know that.
one thing I think about in terms of workforce development is, you know, I think if there's a way that your program could also funnel money into we have a really successful re-entry program. And so helping people who are leaving incarceration, helping make it easier for them to re-enter the workforce. You know, and our re-entry program is grant funded, and it's very successful at reducing recidivism. And they just do a really phenomenal job, but, you know, there's always more work to be done in that area, but that's another issue, is bringing somebody who's been incarcerated back into the workforce and kind of somehow making that easier. And then that, again, once people re-enter the workforce, that's gonna even lower the rate of recidivism even more. And they're a really hard group to employ, especially if you have a felony.
Yeah, fortunately, the workforce has changed so much that employers are having to kind of re-examine their strict guidelines and maybe more likely to hire populations they wouldn't have hired before. So there's an advantage on that, but I would love to take a look. I have heard about the reentry program up there and talked to a couple of people. Because for our side, we are going to be working on, we received a PROUD grant, and that's focused on reentry for people who are coming out of the federal system. And so that's gonna be a huge focus for DLI coming up. And if we can collaborate, we're also, DOC is also looking at how they're handling that all the way around. I don't know, the 20-year contracts for most of the private probation offices around the state, those were 20-year contracts that just expired. And so we can finally have the conversation about how do we best create policy and how these are run. Now it is a perfect time to do that. So I might also bother you to see if I can come learn about what you guys are doing out there.
Yeah, and I also think about maybe the potential of some hospitality training that's specifically geared towards tribes, because, you know, our tribe has maybe the greatest number of, a huge number of people coming in from the outside. And sometimes I meet people who don't even know they're on a reservation.
Right.
People who live there. They don't know they're on a reservation, yes. I met business owners who moved there, started a business, and met me and found out they lived on a reservation.
Yeah.
And so.
I've had that experience myself.
Yeah, and so I think just, and depending on what kind of job you have in the hospitality industry, some of those positions pay very well. I met, actually I was in a restaurant back home and I met a young man, my waiter, who was a high school senior. He worked full-time as a server. He said he made $60,000 a year his senior year of high school because he worked at a nice restaurant.
Yeah.
I honestly made more as a bartender than I do now.
And so, you know, if you're the right kind of person for that, that's a really good living.
Yeah,
That's a very good
It's
living.
debt-free, you know, it's debt-free, so.
And, so, you know, but maybe providing some training for, you know, the hospitality industry.
It's a huge one. It's among some of the most projected occupational growth in our workforce sectors in Montana and across Montana.
Yeah, and just, you know, even if they're not tribal, having a component that educates people, like, this is a reservation, and that does attract a lot of tourists to Montana.
Oh, yeah.
So even though some people are on a reservation and they don't know it, some people come there because it's a reservation, and they kind of expect more, they expect their servers to know something. Well, how many tribal members live here? What tribes live here? How many reservations are there in Montana? Just some really basic questions. If all the servers could know that, I think that would be a huge benefit.
Yeah, it's that pride in being a tribal member and showcasing that. I think like say our tribes start to create these opportunities, like I was saying, where they're welcoming folks in, show them how to put a teepee lodge. I mean, I think when we were at OPI, we were looking at, each school has money for Internet for All and student achievement. And so they hire people to come in, and I think that our native people can be hired for their knowledge of being native and be a direct conduit to all the school districts and start to knock down misconceptions instead of going through a curriculum. So there's a lot of discussions around that. I get kind of confused because I'm now in this role, but it's all really connected. And if we could start to establish that program where you're welcoming folks in, they're interested, and our kids are finding more pride in themselves, especially with like television and everything out there. Their fashion design, all that stuff's coming.
Yeah, and I really do like the idea of a year-round apprenticeship program, but I think that would also be a way to capture students who've dropped out of high school.
Oh, yeah.
To get them, you know, the earlier you get used to working, the earlier, the easier it is to stay working. Like, you get used to having money.
Yeah.
Because you can get used to having money just as easily as you get used to being broke, because you get used to that too.
And they'll get paid.
But if you can get used to having money early on, it's like, oh, it's nice, I can go to McDonald's with my friends, I can go to the movies, I can do
Yes.
stuff, and
Don't have
they
to
get
worry
used to
about
that. and to, you know, to kind of redirect people who dropped out of high school to get them working, and maybe they get their high set, maybe they go on a different path, but, you know, but it's true, some of the people I know who make the most money are in the trade industry.
Yeah, yeah, my brother's a plumber, and he makes 3 times what I do. And he doesn't gross plumbing either, he does the nice. So I did, you know, one of the things I was talking with Glenn Disk, who was previously, I did want to mention, my title has been changed. So I'm no longer an equity and diversity coordinator, I am a workforce integration specialist, which I'll figure out what that is down the road. So, but I was talking with Glenn about apprenticeships, and I said it, and it's true. Native culture and land-based education are really hot right now. And so it is, and when I say hot, what I'm talking about is people are seeking that knowledge and structure of living now more than they ever have. I think it's a really great time for us. We're at a point where we can develop programs where we can do a lot of stuff that differently, and the way that people are looking for it to be done. So I have big dreams about land-based education, about apprenticeships, outfitting, backpacking, I love that, tourism, so, yeah.
There's also, I wanted to say, Job Corps offers training for reentry. Job Corps in Anaconda, there's 180 beds down there. And they can be there for 3 months to 3 years. And they, as long as it isn't violence, like murder or sexual heavy things like that, they'll take them. So does the union. They'll take any of these folks with reentry. And she's right, this CROWD grant, I met with that director. Can't remember her name, but she's got a lot of funds coming down.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is in your realm, but, you know, one thing I think the state has a shortage of is mental health workers.
Oh, yeah.
There's a mental health crisis, I would say, in Montana. We have the highest, I don't know if we still do, but we typically have the highest or one of the highest suicide rates in the nation. And it's really hard to get social workers and mental health workers. And then when you do, they have to do the worst jobs.
Yeah.
And deal with the saddest
anything.
things. So there's a high turnover rate. People go in and then they burn out. And so there's just such a huge need. And I think that there's opportunities for, if we had a bigger mental health staff in the state of Montana to work with police officers, because right now police officers are the mental health workers, and they're not the mental health workers. There's no one else to do it.
It's that is one of the biggest contributions to some of the systemic problems that we face. And so I think, and I always go back to apprenticeship because that's where I started. But we do have behavioral health. What we're trying to do with apprenticeship is look at, and I don't want to say get around licensing issues, but create occupations that meet the needs of the community without having to spend a ton of time or create debt going to school to get those occupations in place and having people work at that time. And apprenticeship solves that problem. So what we have to do is we have to get creative about, are we gonna create community health workers that aren't on the list of occupations? Right, that's kind of how we look at developing.
I know, like, Chairman can make a comment, like, our social workers are taking like a mental health certificate training at college, you know, because they need to have mental health training to deal with their clientele, and they're not mental health workers, but they need to have that. We need to have something. So, yeah, paraprofessionals, and we've had discussions with the Rocky Mountain Regional Office about the need to have paraprofessionals instead of, because we just don't have like a lot of full-blown clinicians knocking on our door to come to rural Fort Belknap, where there's no housing.
Right.
And you gotta drive 50 miles to a department store to buy a towel.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's really difficult to attract professionals, and so paraprofessionals is really important to be able to use that flexibility, for sure.
Well, not to mention, all across Montana, unfortunately, our wages are low compared to other states, so it just adds to that problem of getting skilled professionals into our rural communities.
Good, appreciate it. Good.
So thanks, Helen.
Thank you.
You know, that meeting next Tuesday, we're at what time?
Delta.
At Delta.
8 o'clock breakfast.
Donnie's gonna have to skate that meeting. He pulls for us. He does, he does. You want me to just move into it? Hi, Linwood.
Hello, nice to see everybody.
Nice to see you. How are you today?
I'm a little tired because we celebrated all day yesterday, which will be our update.
Well, that's a really good segue. So we swapped positions with Donnie, so thanks for being flexible in the presentation agenda. But I kind of wondered if you wouldn't mind updating the commission on the progress and talk a little bit about yesterday and what happened.
Yeah, nice to see you all. Sorry I'm not there in person, but we have the Big Sky Doc Film Festival is happening in Missoula, and the course that we worked with all of you to do, we trained 13 Indigenous people, and the short film we created just won the Indigenous film competition yesterday at the festival, which is a huge deal. And Amanda Bear Medicine was our director, and she was our first PA graduate. So we're really doing something that's pretty big. And it showed at 6 high schools with incredible conversation.
In Linwood, Chairman Gray asked, what is the title of the film?
Say that one more time, sorry.
What is the title of the film?
It's called Return to the Blanket, and it's about Joseph Grady, who's from the Blackfeet Reservation, and he's part of the 60 Scoop. So we're really having some amazing stories that are important conversations to have about history, and going into high schools and realizing how little they know. And I would love to share the film with everybody, and there's kind of a giveaway, but he had never met his family, and it turns out Amanda Bear Medicine, who was the director, ended up being his family. So it was so much bigger than just making a film. He's actually, for the first time ever, meeting people from the Blackfeet community and coming back. So.
Yeah, I wanted to just add to that a little bit when we started this project. What a great showcase of what we are looking to do with Indigenous stories, create community connections, but then also have content that we can share with students who can learn about the 60s Scoop and the effect that it had on Native families, people living in urban areas. I hope to see it get added to OPI's list for curriculum for the Indian Education for All Act. And so it's just, I'm super proud of it, and with all the hard work that Linwood has put into it, all the ancillary players, because it is the perfect showcase of what we would want to see these tribal scholarships contributing to moving forward as well.
Yeah, and I just want to thank everybody in the room, because it's all of us working together. I think it's really making a difference, and we got 12 new applicants that were approved this week for the next round of tribal scholarships that will be following a new film. So also open to film ideas. Just want to throw that out there.
That seems to be the one area where we have no problems.
Yeah.
So, and I've been gone a little bit. Do we have an idea of where the next filming session is going to take place, then?
Yeah, I would love to see you all in person next time and also talk about that. But we're looking at potentially doing a film that Mike Jetty suggested on the Crow teasing plan. And then we want to look at Browning, Billings, and Great Falls. And there's talk about going to Fort Peck and Fort Belknap. So we're kind of getting our schedule now for spring, summer, and fall.
Well, of course, we do want to extend our thanks to the Department of Commerce, the Tribal Tourism Office, which provided us with the funding to be able to initiate these scholarships. So one of the things that we're looking to do when Linwood and I first started working together is I wanted to use this project as a sort of feasibility study to see which communities might be good to try to create a film and media full apprenticeship program, where our objective is full-time work doing media and content production for the tribes themselves. So it's going really well as far as the feasibility study goes, but one of the things that we're looking for is further funding for our project. So if in your communities or in your circles you hear of a funding opportunity that you feel might apply to the work that we're trying to do, We really want to continue to be able to try and provide in-person filming opportunities for the tribal scholarship recipients. And so if you could keep us in mind for that, that would be fantastic. Or if you have suggestions as to how to secure funding or community partners that you know of in your nations that would be amenable to helping.
Hey, Amber.
Yeah.
I was wondering if Linwood could share with the commissioners, the business model of renting an equipment truck. For each of these trainings, she secures a truck that has all the equipment for the production assistant training. But if there were more in-house at each of the tribal nations, then they wouldn't have to transport the equipment as far. There'd be opportunities for them to rent them out to filmmakers and commercial productions on their land. I don't know if I'm speaking right to that. I think Linwood knows far more than me.
Is that something you could do, Linwood?
Yeah, so there is a grant that is for, oh gosh, I forget what its name. Rochelle, what's the name of the grant?
The Tribal Business Development Grant?
Yes, the Tribal Business Development Grant. And we were talking about that at some point, it would be amazing if each tribal community could have their own film truck. And we actually have them available to, and it would fit this grant. You have to come up with some money, but not a full 50-50 match. And maybe potentially different tribes could partner together. But we rent a truck every time, and all these productions that come in rent trucks. And Montana Video Productions is looking to sell their trucks. And we did end up talking to Jordan Thompson at the Salish Tribal Economics, and they're very interested. But if we had it in each community, we could come and train those communities to use all the equipment, the cameras, and then be able to make projects in-house. So you could do your own promo videos, your own tourism videos, but potentially productions that are coming could also rent from you. So there'd be crew and a business model. So I think this is a conversation to have over the next year, if this is something that might be of interest.
Yeah, and Linwood, what's the price range, low end to high end for one of these trucks and their equipment? And how much do they rent out when people wanna, rent it from the tribe for use?
Yeah, so it's a full loaded 3-ton truck, which means that it has C-stands and lighting equipment and everything you need to run a production. And so that can range from 135 to 155,000 with everything in it. And it rents for about $1,000 a day. So I don't do the truck rentals, but I'm very close to Montana Video Productions. And he has also agreed he would sell his trucks. He's got 8 of them. He would also stay on as a consultant for the next, as long as needed, to make sure people could be guided on the business model. But it could be, in my opinion, a game changer for what we're trying to do here, because then not only are we doing training, but now it's owned by tribal communities to make their own tribal films.
So he's the only competition?
No, JP Gabriel out of Filmlight is also a big one. This is just a guy who's willing to sell, but it's pretty much those two. They are the two people who do, I mean, he doesn't, and then someplace like Yellowstone brings in their own, but there was 200 other productions that filmed, and it's an idea. I'd be really happy to talk longer. And I know Amber and Rochelle and I would jump on that too, but we could come in as a strategic partner and talk about renting it and being part of the business model, if it's of interest. We just thought it might be an amazing opportunity.
Hey, Luke, I'm gonna put in for
Thanks so much, Linwood.
Do you guys have any questions for Linwood or I about where we're at with this right at the moment? Or suggestions?
Congratulations on the film. That's cool.
It was a really big day. Thank you. We were all tired and very, very happy. And Amanda was interviewed. It kind of is changing her life. She's now a director with an award-winning film.
Oh, yeah.
And it was really great. All her family came from Browning and we all got to celebrate together. And it was a very joyous day. So I just want to thank you all. And may we have many more of these ahead of us.
Yeah. Cool. It was really cool, gratifying to see all those smiling faces, and then a family ceremony afterward for Joseph Grady, bringing him back into the fold. So it's very touching, very powerful.
Nice.
Yep, they gave him a blanket, so it was full circle, and it was a powerful day. It was full of hearts.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so looks like this last thing is any other business? None? Good? 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 All right.
Chair Gray, I was gonna hope that I could add one more little comment. If that's okay. Yeah, show you guys. These are really nice, by the way, thank you. Yeah, you bet, and if you end up needing more for events or stuff, you ordered a bunch. Promote the brand, recruit. Let's go and go first. There you go. I had just overlooked mentioning in my update that I am in the process of developing the guidelines and rules around the Indian Equity Fund Tribal Tourism Little Sister Grant. So my grant is the shadow of Luke's grant, but mine is specifically for tribal tourism businesses. They're $10,000 awards. This is what I'm proposing. So far, I've got an initial okay, but I have to go through a number of different procedures before they are solidified. Legal has to review all that. But this is kind of how it's looking. 10% match for, so $1,000 for a $10,000 award. Eligible match would be like a year of cell phone coverage. You know, you need to have a cell phone to run a business. And if you're spending $100 a month on your cell phone bill, you basically made your match just with your cell phone bill. So looking at some ways in which, or if you have a website, your web hosting, that's a match. It's a necessary component of your business. And to target 5 business types. So accommodation and hosting, tours and guides, which includes outfitting, Native American made in Montana, vendors, artists, creators, fashion, and then I've got a couple of others that are in my notes. But essentially I want you to know that I'm working on that, and we're hoping to launch in fiscal year 25, so at the end of the season, in advance of the next season. And along with that will be some mandatory training that we will also cover and will count towards match. So if someone wants to do a food truck, we'd like them to have their food handler's permit and some training on safe food handling. We'd pay for that training, and it would also credit towards their match. Also, some contracting with certified interpretive guide training for professional hospitality, and work with the tribal historic preservation officers on what's important for the tribal identity per nation, and how to have that kind of professional prowess when you are interacting with the public and entertaining customers, and how to have that kind of professional polish on what you offer, and to have a story that is consistent with the tribal identity and tribal story. So additionally, we're looking at some additional contracts with grant writing, modifying some things to our cycle where we have a template. Every applicant has the same kind of professional packaging on their submission to provide some additional resources so that we can continue to increase the quality of the submissions to our programs. And therefore, it's easier for the applicant, it's easier for the NAVAs, it's easier for the review team. And then when it comes time to show these stories, like we had earlier today, or in a legislative committee, we can provide them with the polished, finished results from these cycles. So we're working as a team to continue to modify and improve what we're doing, and to leverage other programs and resources to try to see if we can meet tribal citizens where they're at. And not everyone's gonna wanna be a plumber, but they might want to have a pop-up, vendor station at a powwow and sell their art, or they might wanna be an outfitter and go and take people out and do guided hunts. So we're looking at where we can match
our resources to where people are really at and kind of what they really want to do.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you, thanks for letting me give you that last update.
Where's our next meeting?
It's in Great Falls. I did think that, I'm sorry. I'm not sure yet where we're gonna have it. I'm looking at hotels, but what?
Oh, we're good, huh?
Yeah.
Motion? Second, all in favor?
I.
Thank you all.
Thank you.